Hello! How are we all doing? It's not been a good start, has it, Mike? Oh, I had to reboot. And then it started eating my disk space. Not joking. I ended up with about 50 gig, which sounds enough, but it's not. Plus the fact, as I say, it was eating it. So then, you're going to give me a thumbs up?
I just did.
Excellent. I wasn't paying any attention, Mike. And then, having rebooted, it claimed back nearly 600 gig. And then I ended up with 300. So I don't know where it's going. But as I said to Mike, it's all a plot. It's a plot by Apple because you can't retrofit a hard drive and you can't use an external drive for Dropbox anymore. So everything's got to live on the tiny hard drive that I've got, the 1 gig one, the 1 terabyte one. If I need more than that, I have to pay Apple money. As I said to Mike, this is a raging con. And I gave you an example about burgers, didn't I?
You did.
But never mind, we'll move on.
She must have heard you.
Why?
Because I've got the surveillance camera on her. And as soon as you said hello, she got up, went for a drink.
He means Lola, if you're wondering. We haven't got a mad woman in the attic. Well, we probably have. but that's not who he's talking about. So, I saw Kim was in first. Hello, Kim. And who else have we got? We've got Deb. We've got Jonathan. Oh, is that Jammy I see on time?
It is Jammy.
Oh, excellent. And who else have we got? Oh, good grief, it's jumping all over the place. We have Debbie, we have Chris, hello. We have, who else have we got? Graham, hello, Graham. And Paul, hello, Paul, long time no see. And Peter's with us. Peter has a starring role tonight, but I'm not saying anything else. I wouldn't want him overexcited. And what's that last one that I can't read, Mike? Hang on, let me make that bigger. Oh, I could put my glasses on, couldn't I? That's what they're on my head for. Right. Carol's with us. Hello, Carol. And, I've got let me see that. Is it Archidocrates?
Alkidocrates.
That's my best attempt. Hello. And who else have we got? I saw Carol before. I just sit and watch Carol. It was a good session, wasn't it? It was an excellent session. I'm waiting for the recording. And, Pete's in the house. Hello, Pete. And Renee is with us. Right, okay, we can get on then. So, the machine is somewhat poorly. It's had to have a reboot and bad words have been said. Incantations have been said over it and hopefully it'll see us through the night, but I'm not hopeful. It's that. So, let's see if everything's moving for a start. Right, I can't tell if that's moving or not, so I'll have to whiz across here and have another look. It does, it looks like it's moving. And now things are moving, even though I'm not clicking them. I told you, it's possessed tonight. But fingers crossed. So, what have we got? We've got shrinking PDF files. Not that they are actually shrinking, it's you shrinking them. Then we've got coffee time in Affinity. I've had fun with that one this week. Then we've got some freebies, which are related to both of the previous, particularly the shrinking of the PDFs. The PDF I'll be shrinking live will be available as the freebie. And then we've got Obsidian, Notion style projects we've got in that. That's also been fun this week. So we are broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure you are watching in high quality. Cog in the lower right hand corner. While you are down there is a like button and we like the like button. So hit the like button. So let's go back in time to last Saturday. There's only one thing of interest on a Saturday when United are playing on a Sunday, and that is Tesco, who did not, yet again, cover themselves in glory. There were 2 issues. Lola was particularly disgusted. This is what Lola wanted. Large dentist-sticks. What did Lola get? Medium dentist-sticks, not a happy dog. Until she realised that if she made enough fuss about it and complained loud enough and long enough, Mummy would give her 2. Also, 7 is not 28. So Lola's booked some remedial maths classes for them. She's not a happy bear. I mean, if they send you a packet of 7, it's only actually 3.5, isn't it, Mike? Because she's now doubling up. Of course, she'll get used to doubling up, and when the big ones come back, she'll want 2 of those as well. Oh, life's so difficult. And the other thing was, and even the driver agreed, didn't he? Now, wasn't this to do with baby wipes?
I think it was, yeah.
Yes, we needed some baby wipes. Don't ask, we haven't got a baby, but you need baby wipes. Every household needs baby wipes. So they have a tagline of every little helps. It would. Only they've halved the size and double the price. It's obscene. There used to be 120 baby wipes in the packet. There's now 60. And they're also smaller. So not only is the packet smaller, but the actual baby wipes themselves are smaller and the price is twice as much. So, shall we be going to Asda at any point? We need to go somewhere else. But if you thought Saturday was bad, oh no, because then Sunday started. But Sunday started inordinately well in the Women's Super League because United were playing Leicester. And they won 5-1. Hold that thought. Because now we are travelling even further back in time to October 2021, when Mike had a starring role in the week at MacBites headquarters. He was improving his Affinity designer chops. And they weren't doing very well, United. They were 3-0 down against Liverpool at this stage. Is this having deja vu for you, Mike?
No.
So it said, do you want to continue watching? And Mike added his artwork, no thanks. But yes, bad words were said. And misery loves company. Hence Peter's starring role. Mike was not happy. Peter wasn't happy. But hold that thought. Let's get back to last Sunday. After the glory of the ladies, it was time for the Premier League. And they were playing Liverpool. But it couldn't be as bad as last time. Could it? No, it was worse. It was a 7-0 drubbing. I thought, as all these goals were going in, we were actually saying, weren't we? What's the worst score you've ever witnessed? And I thought it was 5-0. I think I'm right, 5-0 was the worst I've ever seen.
6-3.
So, were bad words said? Oh, yes. And remember, misery loves company. So, onto Facebook they went. Another starring role for Peter. It wasn't good. Let's put it like that. Let's lay it to rest. We did a bit of research, and the last time United got beat, and that was 7-0 as well, was Boxing Day 1931 against Wolves. Luckily, I wasn't alive to witness that. And you know what? Neither were my mum and dad. Gran and Grandad would have been. So Grandad wouldn't have been happy. Yes, so you're thinking to yourself, it can't get any worse, can it, for Toblerone Thomas? But it did. Well, it did. You might not recognise a Toblerone by the time they've rebranded it. They've been told they've got to drop the Matterhorn from the packaging. You couldn't make this stuff up, could you? But seriously, the Matterhorn is on the packaging, said Matterhorn, and they're not allowed to use it anymore. Who knew you could trademark a mountain? I certainly didn't. There's no news on the status of the Toblerone bear. If you're wondering, he's there on the packaging. Once seen, can't be ignored. The reason there is a bear on the packaging, he represents the canton of Bern, which is where Toblerone comes from, in 1908. And Bern is known as the city of the bears, hence the bear. Now, if that is meant to be the Matterhorn, but they've added a bear to it, then surely they've made enough changes not to remove the Matterhorn. But apparently it's gone. So Sunday was a bit of a write-off for you, wasn't it? But if Sunday was bad, Monday meant he had to, well, not exactly go into work, but, virtually be present at work, weren't you? And speak to the people who work in Liverpool and support Liverpool. So, you were very brave, weren't you?
I was very brave.
He was a brave boy. And rumours of an emergency grocery order were just dirty rumours emanating from Liverpool. It was still a case of don't mention the match. He was smarting. So let's swiftly move on. Oh, Tuesday I had new toys to play with. I mentioned Hindenburg 2 being in beta, and I couldn't wait for one particular feature. It's one of these things, it's like, oh, I wish it did that, I wish it did that, I wish it did that. And it's always the same thing, and then you get it, and you're like, oh, yeah, it's okay. But the feature I was interested in was the thing at the bottom there. One, the interface is much more modern. and it's hard to explain in what way because it looks exactly the same. It's flatter, I think. It's flatter. The clipboards are where it's at as far as I'm concerned, over on the right-hand side. But the thing I was really waiting for was the colours. In most audio apps, you are able to colour code the tracks. So my track would be a certain colour. I think MacBites Siri is pink and Lady Siri is green. Don't ask. And the stuff like that. And that would have been quite handy when you're looking at an overview of it. But they've taken it a step further, which is either a great idea or the worst idea they've ever had, depending on how you look at it, which is you can colour code individual clips. So you can have multiple rainbow coloured clips on a single track. I'll let you know how that goes. But yes, it's there. And I was thinking, do I actually put a proper project through it? And I thought, if it dies halfway, you won't be able to open it with the old version. Decisions. But I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed myself on Tuesday.
2 questions.
Go on.
First question is from Jamie. Does Wendy still do deliveries?
She does, but not every week.
We saw her the other week, didn't we?
We saw her the other week, about 3-4 weeks ago. Not seen her since. But this one was quite a jovial fellow who was talking a lot. So I thought, I'm sitting up here thinking, I hope you're wearing a mask. Mike certainly was. But yes, Wendy does do deliveries, but didn't appear this week.
And a tech question from Pete. Is Hindenburg 2 free, upgrade or paid?
Oh, Pete.
It's the S word.
Yes, you might need to sit down. Right, it went subscription a while ago. Now, if you have a license like I do from, I think mine was 2018 or 2019 I bought it, then you have what's called a perpetual license. It is going to be a paid update because the one thing that I haven't put on that screen, because I'm not in the slightest bit bothered, is there is a transcription service built in. So the transcription service is going to be a paid add-on. So you up to a certain level, you're going to have, and this is the plan at the moment. It's it could all change, but at the moment, the pro version up to a certain level is going to be you can buy a perpetual license if you already had one. So you'll be able to upgrade at a reduced price and still have a perpetual license. If you want services that cost them money, like transcription and automated processing and stuff like that, you will be able to buy them as an add-on, but that will be charged pro rata, so probably per month. There is another session on Monday where they're revealing another new feature and they may have an update on the pricing, in which case I will report back next week. Their sessions only have seats for 100. Last time I didn't get an invite. I nicked Mike's. Well, you had a webinar, so you didn't miss it. But this time I did actually get an invite before all the seats had gone. So I will be there on Monday and I will report back, but that's it at the moment. Okay, so, yes, Tuesday's my day of leisure. So the binge watch box set of the week, I didn't even know this was coming on, so it was a lovely surprise, is The Bay. It's series 4 of The Bay. It's a different story every series. There is continuity across the series in terms of the staff at the police station. But I watched the first episode. I did the thing of stopping it and then watching it like 20 minutes in so I didn't have to suffer the adverts. And then at the end, as I'm thinking, oh, that was good. At the end, the announcer said, and if you can't wait till next week for episode 2, the entire series is on ITVX. So, pulled an all-nighter, watched it all. I hope they keep bringing these series out because otherwise I'm going to have like a complete blank, aren't I, when I've watched everything. Everybody else is watching it one a week and I'm not. It's good. It's good. Put it like that. And it's set only about 50 miles away from here and it's somewhere that I've been. So when they're talking about the locations like the Midland Hotel and Frontierland, Frontierland was where I had that burger. It was before we were together, but I went up to Lancaster, the university at Lancaster, to use the library. And because I was a private student at the University of London, only I lived in Manchester. So it was quite a way to get to the library. So I went up to Lancaster to use the library and I ended up in Morecambe one night at Frontierland, which is a bit like a pleasure beach. And I know people in the States have a totally different vision of what a pleasure beach is. So we'll move swiftly along. It's rides. Mind you, that's as bad. Like roller coasters and things like that. Is it a theme park? Or what's the other one?
There'll be a theme
Like
park.
Six Flags, basically. But small. Anyway, all these locations were there and I was having a ball. So Wednesday, we'd been warned to batten down the hatches. We were going to have acres of deep snow, they said. Oh, I had visions of it being absolutely fabulous, that Lola would be playing in it and I'd do videos. Oh, it'd be marvellous. But of course, while everywhere else had lots and lots of beautiful snow, this is Manchester. And we had nothing but rain. Lola was disgusted because it's a double whammy for her now, isn't it? One, she has to be dried when she comes back in. But two, if they've gritted the roads, the salt is bad for their pores. So she has to have her pores washed as well. Now, there is an alternative to that, which is wearing shoes. But she was none too keen on either option. So she was grumpy, wasn't she? Grumpy. I've only just heard that about the salt on the pores. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But she had them washed. She wasn't happy. While all that was going on, I was in my power hour for Second Brains, which is like an unofficial thing once every 2 weeks. A casual gathering, shall we say, of people who have done the Second Brain thing. Mike decided to go international though, didn't you? And it was Toronto. It's very late, I think, as well. Very, very late. So he was up past his bedtime, but not only past his bedtime, he was also up really past my bedtime, weren't you? Nearly. So went to bed after midnight. But did you enjoy yourself?
I did.
Good, as long as you enjoyed it. It was the Excel user group based in Toronto. One day you could get there, you know. You've done Canada.
I'm speaking at that in a fortnight.
There you go, then. So you can invite everybody
Excel
then if they want.
on the Mac.
Excel on the Mac. Yeah, what a perfect topic. Yeah. Send it out to the list. So Thursday. Oh, yes. He was a bit nervy on Thursday, weren't you? Because it was European night. For those not in the know, that's the Euro tin pot. It's not as good as the proper European cup, obviously. It's the Euro tin pot. Didn't go too well initially, did it? But it ended up all right. There was a few VARs, wasn't there? But as I pointed out to Mike, and I didn't realise it was only the first leg. I should have done because I had seen the calendar. But we've got to go and play over there now, haven't we?
We have.
But away goals don't count double, so they did only get one, not two. So somebody said on the commentary they're all but there. And I thought... Liverpool 7-0. But we won't mention that. So at the moment, he's a happy boy. They're almost there, but not quite. Which takes us on to Friday, when Mike found out something he didn't know. So I thought if he didn't know, you guys might not know. We were talking about Outlook, and I said, you do realise that's free on the Mac now, don't you? And he said, what, without a subscription? That's what free means, Mike, that you don't give them any money. So you can now use from Microsoft, OneNote is totally free and Outlook is totally free. Is it a good idea? Well, I've never got it working properly, but I guess your mileage may vary. They had a new interface that they'd put on it, and I don't know if they've actually finalised it yet, because unfortunately parts of the interface were completely missing, which... As far as I was concerned, you've got the buttons there, but you click the buttons and it just says, like, coming soon. So I'll have to have a look at it. But yes, it is totally free. You do not need a subscription. And because it's on the Mac, you have things like widgets and the menu bar and all of that lot. So let me know in the chat, does anybody use that?
I use Outlook on the Mac.
I've got it installed, but it never seems to pull down my mail. So I leave it be, it leaves me alone.
It's the only one that allows me to connect to my work calendar.
Let's not talk about your work calendar. It's a pain in the proverbial. I used to be able to see it. That's probably why they've stopped that, You
could do if you fired up Outlook.
Yeah, like I said, might look at that in the future, but it's not happening today. So moving swiftly along. Now, pay attention. This is important. Really important, because when this has happened in the past, you have been saying bad words. I'm fine, Mike's fine, you're not fine. No, because this Sunday, things are changing, but not in the UK. So in the States, you are springing forward. And we all know what fun that can be. Not. So there are generally accepted instructions for coping with it. I'd like to add our shower to the list that you're seeing right now. And I'd like to enter it under the it's not worth it category. Because to change that thing in the shower, you've actually got to get in the bath, haven't you? And start fiddling with it. And I've got absolutely no idea where the instructions are. Oh. Why it can't just update itself, I have no idea. Everything else in the house does. We get away with the cooker. We don't need the masters or the engineering, masters in engineering or a hammer, because ours is that old it doesn't have a clock, does it? Why does your cooker have a clock?
I don't know.
No, I don't know either. But the car, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So this is what you need to know. On the 17th and the 24th, the times are different in the States. So I've put them in order. They're not in the right order, obviously. Otherwise, it'd be 5, 4, 3 and 2. But we have a lot of people in the Pacific time zone. So instead of it kicking off at 1 o'clock, it's going to be 2 o'clock. Eastern is our next popular. It's going to be 5 o'clock, not 4 o'clock. Now, this is good news. Because when the clocks go back, you could have missed an hour. With this time change, you could be an hour early. But I am warning you. Consider yourself warned. Right. Now, in the announcement mail, if you are subscribed to the MacBites mailing list, we always include a link to the time. So that looks like this. So we put the time in our time zone. At the moment, we are UTC or GMT. And that one is on the left. So that's the time of the event in the event time zone. But what you need to be aware of is the other one on the right, which is I've set my location to Seattle. I've clicked on the link for the 17th and it's telling me it's 2 o'clock. So you will always get the right time from the link in the mail. Just be aware of that. So now we're all up to date. Okay. Oh, hang on. Kim says, remember to show up. It's an hour later. So you might think, we have had mails when that's happened, hasn't it? Like you're late. No. We're not late. You're early. But that's next week. Right. So shrinking PDF files. There's been a lot of complaints about Affinity apps making PDF files that are absolutely huge. I don't care what size the files are from Affinity because I will shrink them elsewhere. But we are going to take a look at shrinking PDF files and we are starting with Affinity. Right, first thing to think about here as I open up Affinity Publisher is that not all PDF files are equal. You may think when you've made a PDF file that the only difference between the PDF files that you've made, are you actually thinking of opening? I see an icon. I do. Ah, hello. Good, glad you could join us. Right, I'm going to move this over there while I explain about PDFs. So, you may think, oh, if I use a different output for the PDF, that's what makes the size different. But that's not the difference that I'm talking about. When you make a PDF, you could be making it from a website. You could be making it from an app like these here. You could scan it. So these PDFs, not all the same. You've got your export to PDF, print to PDF, you can create PDF form, you can scan a file. If you've scanned a PDF and subsequently you've opened it in an app that supports OCR, you'll end up with a hybrid file. It will ask you to save it. You won't see a difference. You'll look at it and you'll think, well, it's just a scan. But it's not. It's got two layers in it. One is the picture that it's scanned and there is it's actually not seen. So there is a hidden second layer with OCR text in it. And obviously that is going to make the file size bigger. So there's lots of things is the short version of this. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to open up a file, which is my Affinity Photo Secrets book that you've not seen yet. But this is what we've got. So in here, let's start at the top. Right. This file is going to be fairly large because I've got a background graphic on there. I've got images in it. This won't make any difference. The fact it's a table of contents won't necessarily make it huge. It's just text. But within here, I do have a lot of images. Now, because this is Affinity Photo for iPad, these images were taken on my 12.9-inch iPad. So each of these is actually quite big. So there's lots of images in there. Now, we're not talking at this stage about the size of this file. The size of this file will depend on the size of the graphics and if they are embedded or not. Now, you know that I do like to embed my graphics. So if we go to our resource manager, they should all be embedded. So if we look in here, yep, they are all embedded. So you can see I've got individual graphics, I've got the dog down the line, I've got the icon, which is an SVG, I've got this JPEG, which is the background, and I've got other stuff in there as well. And all of them are embedded. Now that means that's a single file that I can pass around and work with and not have to worry about losing the graphics. But you can use your resource manager to get rid of those if you need to. Now, let's see. I have no idea where that graphic originates from, where that file is. So I have no idea how big it is. Where would I have put that? No idea. But what I will do with it is the size of this file will have an impact. So if this file is 200 meg, I'm not going to get a PDF out of it that's 50k, obviously, because the PDF is going to include what's in this file. So the size of this file will impact the size of the PDF, but the size of the PDF is independent. That can be tinkered with. So I need to export this. So file, export, and it starts generating a preview. Version 2 seems to take an eternity to generate a preview. I have no idea why. Now, at the top, so let's fold these up, because you can, in here, you do have control over the size of the output PDF. So this is saying PDF. This is the file format of the output. So obviously we don't want to change it from PDF. We need it to be PDF. But then we have file settings. And so this says preset. You can see that says lead magnets. In here, that's a custom one that I've created, as is the Manchester United one, which is set to their printers. But in here, you will have PDF for print, a press-ready PDF, digital small, digital high quality, and then export and flatten. And then you've got some special PDF formats. Now, these special PDF formats, there is one missing in here that people have been banging on and asking for ages, but they've still not added it. The thing to think about in here is, the biggest thing to think about is, if you've taken the time and you've put clickable hyperlinks in, don't do a high quality or press ready, because they're ignored. So keep it to digital if you want those links to work, and that includes links in the table of contents. Now, the special ones with the X and weirdy numbers after them, PDF is an Adobe format, but they have open sourced it and handed it over to an independent body. And it's important that that was done, because if they make changes to it, I'm sure this has happened to us all. You've got a Word file from 2003 and it won't open in Word. You've been there, haven't you?
Many times.
Yes, and there was the time that Apple, this was even worse than Microsoft. Oh, well done. It's managed to give us a preview, and I haven't fallen off my twig yet. Only a matter of time, though. It's important that you can get to old file formats. Normally, old files can be opened in the new version of an app, but new files can't be opened in an old version, and we all accept that. You know, we know that to add features, you can't retrospectively add it to a version that's 20 years old. We know that. Apple decided that you could open the new files in the new version, but not the old. Okay, so far. And you couldn't open the old files in the new version either. Now, that would only be okay if I could install the old version. Oh, by the way, you can't install the old version. Yes, the proverbial hit the fan and they fixed it. But this is the problem with PDF. If it was a proprietary format and changes were made to it, it could well be in a year or 50 years, that you would not be able to open that PDF. Because of that, if you think about documents in libraries where they have to be able to be opened, or legal situations, they have decided they will create standards of PDF, and as long as you produce your PDF to one of these standards, it is guaranteed that that will always be supported in the future. So when I create these things, it's always worthwhile creating them in multiple PDF formats, because a PDF is not a PDF. There are a whole range of them. But in here, the one I usually choose is digital high quality. That way I get my links and I'm able to control everything else. But what I did for this one was, in the advanced, I made some changes. So what I've done in here, I can't actually remember the changes. One was the 100% quality for JPEGs, which is going to increase the file size. But there was a reason that I did that. I took away all the print stuff, so I don't want printer's marks, I don't want the bleed, I don't want the invisible layers. So I'm keeping the file size down by excluding those, but I have set the quality to 100%. So this file is going to be fairly big. I've also told it to embed all the fonts and subset the fonts. So those are the settings that I had created. Now, how I created them as a set of settings that I could reuse, I'm pretty sure in version 1 you went up here and there was some option, not that one, this one. You went in here and there's an option at the bottom to save custom, and it's gone. But it is under here. So there is a burger menu next to advanced, and in there, and obviously it's saying delete the preset because I'm using a preset. But if I made some changes in here, this would then offer me to be able to create a preset. So that was how I created the preset. Then all I need to do is to export it. So I'm going to export this. I've no idea what size it is. So sticking it on the desktop could be a really bad idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in here in shrinking PDFs. And that way it's not going to start uploading to iCloud. So it's going to have a think about it, and it is going to export that. It will take a few seconds. I think there's about 30 pages in this now. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, there was one question from Jamie, who said, I don't understand why transcription services, so this is going back to Hindi, seem to be so expensive. Am I missing something with how they work?
Processor power that has to be paid for. So it's a little bit like AI. It needs processor cycles, it needs processor time. So back in the day, my mum was the first lady to work on a computer in Manchester. It was the size, it was an entire floor of the university. And she worked for ESSO. And they had to buy time on this computer, and it was an arm and a leg. In essence, we're going back to that. We've been through a period where the power had moved from the server to the desktop, and everything was happening on the desktop. But now services are happening in the cloud, and that has to be paid for. So the price may come down, but at the moment, it's only embryonic. I mean, if you've ever tried something like Otter, it's pretty good. It's pretty good with an American accent. That's probably its best. It's not bad with an English accent, but I wouldn't rate its chances. I've heard from somebody who is Scottish, said don't bother. Now, I don't know if that is the accent, a Scottish accent, or whether they're using different words. So, for instance, in Ireland, they say Garda or Gardaí for the police. We say police. In Scotland, it's police. There's no way Otter's going to pick that up. That's not, I don't think that's an accent thing, do you? I think that's a totally different word. It's actually spelt with an S. So it's embryonic and it needs to improve before the price is likely to come down, is the short version. Right, okay. I now need to see that file, don't I? So let's have a look at that file and see what size it is. So let's get rid of those, and there we go. So there's my file. Right, if we switch it to this, we can see it's 89, almost 90 meg. Now, we'll have a look at it. It's perfect. You know, everything was sent out at 100%. Now, why didn't I compress it at the Affinity end? And my rationale for not doing that, you can do that and you will get a smaller file. So we'll do that in a second. But my rationale for not doing that, so we'll have a look at some of these. They are all perfect. But if I want 2 PDFs from 2 different applications to be compressed in the same way, I can't do that if the compression happened in Affinity Photo, Affinity Publisher, or Affinity Designer. So I need another way to compress it so I can throw at my compression routine anything and I'll get the same result. I don't have to fiddle with it every single time. That's the rationale. Your mileage may vary. But I've found in here, it does its own thing, really. It does, honestly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in here full quality. And we'll put that one in there. Right, we'll see what we can get out of here by repeating the same process again. So file export, it'll take another 20 minutes to do that. But in the preset, I don't even have to do anything in there as soon as I start making changes in here. So 144 is Retina. So that might be good enough. At which point my preset disappears because I've got something in there that doesn't match the preset now. But the knock-on effect of that is I should then be able to create a preset. There we go. So it's not deleting it anymore or renaming it. It's create a preset for this, but I've not finished yet. So I'm leaving it at 144. Then I come down to the advanced. Right, do you want to downsample images? All this kind of stuff. So my DPI is at 144 there. My quality for JPEG is 100. So I could probably get away with 90 and not even notice. And that's the thing. With this compression, it's not a case of taking that down to 2 or 10. It's going to look shocking. You're looking for a compromise between what it looks like and what the settings are in here. That still doesn't look bad at that. Right, I think I'll leave the rest alone. But if I'm confident, if this is a document that's going to a single company and I'm confident they've got all the fonts, then I wouldn't need to embed the fonts either. But with a PDF, you don't want that to look horrific down the line. So I do tend to embed the fonts. Right, but we have made a couple of changes there, which should impact the size. So I'll export that one and we'll see what that looks like. So I'm putting it in the same place, but the full quality one is in the full quality folder. It shouldn't take as long, but you never know. That's not bad, is it? It starts off quite slow and then gets a spurt on towards the end. So I'll bring this back on so we can see how big that one is. Right, huge difference, as you can see. That is only 21 meg. And it is uploading it, isn't it? But it's uploading it to Dropbox, not iCloud. So there's a huge difference there. So let's have a look at it. I can't tell the difference on my Retina iMac. It looks fine. Sometimes you can tell the difference around the JPEGs. So what I would tend to do with that is zoom into it in here and have a look how pixelated it is. And we got some pictures at the end of the dog. So it would be looking at the pictures of the dog and looking at the annotations on it and seeing how bad it is. But that doesn't actually look that bad as far as I'm concerned. And it's much smaller. That is not, I don't think, as small as we can get with that though. But it's not bad. So that is what you can do from the Affinity apps. And it's the same with Word or Excel, whatever. The problem you've got is you would have to master the settings for each application. So I will create a new folder in here. We'll call that 144, which was what that was, like that. And then what I'm going to do is duplicate the full quality one, but I'm going to put in some words for the folders that indicate what I'm going to do with it. So the first one is Acrobat. And the next one is going to be PDF Expert. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the one that is the full quality one, and we're going to have a look at it in Acrobat and see what we can do in Acrobat. Now, I'll be honest with you. I get Acrobat as part of the Creative Cloud. And I am actually using it. So I'm going to open this up. I was using PDF Expert, but I refuse to pay their subscription. It's an arm and a leg. It really is. So I decided that what I would do is I would change my default to Acrobat and see how I went. I don't like Acrobat. I don't like the interface. It looks like Fisher-Price has gone crazy in a playground. As you can see, it's not... It's horrific. It is. For instance, what happened was they've made an iPad app. And then they've retrofitted it to the Mac, and I don't appreciate it. So if we go into more tools, that's an iPad interface, isn't it? My eyes are all over the place. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing here. I just don't like it at all. But I thought, at least I can check with this. As we can see in here, all my bookmarks come through, and I've got my outline. So that's important to me. And I can navigate with it as well. All these are live. When that broke in Scrivener, it was a major calamity. So it's good that that's there. And I've got my thumbnails. Now, one of the things you can do to scoot down the file size is delete the thumbnails. The problem with that is every time it opens, it needs to regenerate the thumbnails. So you get a smaller file size, but the compromise is the file is going to take longer to open because it's generating the thumbnails as it goes. So these are the things that you need to think about. So in terms in here of the quality of these images, let's have a look. They look fine and the text looks fine, right? But then it would, wouldn't it? Because that one is the full quality one. Right, so what I would then need to do in here is click Optimize the PDF. And the first thing that I've got is to reduce the file size. I've also got a couple of others. Now, I mentioned if you'd scanned pages, and this Optimize the scanned pages will correct any skewing that you've got going on, and it will take out like dots of dirt on it as well. But we're interested in reducing the file size. So from here, your first option is, do you want to reduce the file size for just this file, or is it multiple files? So it does have a batch processor in here. The reason that I'm not keen on this for reducing the file size is it doesn't give you any idea of the size reduction you're going to achieve. But we'll do a one-off. It needs to know where I want to put it. So I'm going to put it in there, right, which is where it is already. No, I know what I'll do with it. I'll put it in here, but we'll go in there, we'll go in Acrobat, and I'll put in compressed. And then we've got the original as well. Right, let's put it in there. And it's reducing the size, but the thing is, at this stage, it didn't give us any indication of what it's going to do to reduce the size. We're just trusting it. Oh, is that a good idea? Well, it might be. And as you can see, it's not that fast either. But I find the lack of any interaction telling you, what you can expect ludicrous. Now, in the advanced optimization, this is where you need to be if you want control like me. But honestly, it's horrific. Well, I don't like the design. There's just too much going on. You do have settings, so you've got standard, mobile and custom. I think I made 199 max, but don't quote me on that. Trying to get it to work, basically. But what you need to do is you have categories. So you've got images, fonts, transparency, etc., and then all of the settings. So these are all to do with images. Then in the fonts, you've got to do with the font. So this one is Stingray, and it says subset. Stingray is referring to, let's come out of here, it's that where I've actually used it there. That's the Stingray font. So that's what it's talking about. So I don't really want to get rid of that, or my signature will come in any kind of font. Obviously, what I could do is convert it to curves, and then I wouldn't need to embed that. So those are things you need to think about back at the end that you're designing it. Now, I wouldn't need to edit my signature. It might need to go bigger, it might need to go smaller, but I wouldn't be changing the spelling of it. So that is something that I could convert. Just something to think about, which impacts the final output, the size of the final output. But in your head, you're thinking, well, it's a font, so I'll leave it. Right, so that's our fonts. We've got the transparency, which I'm ignoring at the moment. I'm presuming there isn't any in there. We can discard things. So if you've got alternative images, or you've got JavaScript in there, or anything else, you can get rid of them. So not many of those are ticked. Then you've got the user data. So if you've put comments in it or there's forms in it, the fact it's a form will make the PDF bigger. And you can clean up stuff as well. So if there's links in there that aren't going anywhere, you can get rid of those. And all that you see there. There is also the option to optimize the PDF for fast web viewing, which was what I was saying about when it starts to load in and all the things it has to do. So that is what that one is set to, and you have various collections of them. So standard, mobile, etc. Right, it used the standard to compress the thing. So the original, if you remember, was 90 meg. Right, so let's bring this on. So the original was the full quality one in here that was 90 meg. We made a copy of it in Acrobat. We also have already, from Affinity, done the 144. So if you remember in there, that one ended up at 21 meg, and I said, I think we can do better. So remember that the 144 and the full quality came from Affinity. In the Acrobat one, there is the original that we use. That's almost 90 meg, and here is the compressed one. Should I ask you to type it in? What do you think the best you were going to get out of that is, Mike? It was 90 and we got to 21. Oh, he's really having a think here. Put it in the chat. Go on. Not you put it in the chat, everybody else put it in the chat. You can speak, dear boy. I'd have thought 7 might be on your mind.
Really?
Oh, I'm bad.
7.
7, right, okay. Might say any advance on 7, Mac? Right, let's open the compressed one and find out. 1.5 meg. So me trying this and just using the standard compression, I thought, oh, wow, look at that. Ah, indeed. Let's look at it. So if we open that one, make sure we're looking at the right one here. It's having another think about it. So this one that we're looking at here is the full quality one that we've just used. Let's get rid of that. And open that one. Right, so this is the one that's compressed. It's not actually that bad, is it? It's not bad. Once you start getting in, you'll be thinking, so let's move it down a bit. Let's get to there. I don't actually think that is that bad. I might be thinking about some of the special effects that I've got here, which is a drop shadow on it. And it doesn't look bad on the big title, but on my name, it's not looking too great. But this is okay. That is okay. So move down to here. The text should be okay because as I'm selecting this, that is indicating to you this is not a scanned PDF. This is a proper PDF where you can actually edit stuff. But let's go and have a look at the dog. Where's the dog? Right. So if we keep going in here, how bad does that look? And not bad at all. These numbers look sharper than the graphic, and that's because these are vector and the graphic is not. So the graphic has been reduced in size, but I don't think to the point you can't use it. So if you were giving this away and people were downloading it, you were footing the bill for the bandwidth, I think you'd get away with that. The text is absolutely fine and the graphics really aren't that bad. My problem with it is I've got so little control. Although I've got all of those options, I've no idea what they're set to and why. And there isn't much in the way of explanation. But that's impressive, isn't it? In terms of the actual functionality to do compression, I actually think PDF Expert does it better than Acrobat. The thing with it is you'd have to map what you get from Acrobat out to PDF Expert. So that's what we've got in Acrobat. And there's also another slight fly in the ointment with PDF Expert. So that's Acrobat. This one was Affinity, wasn't it? So Affinity Publisher. And that was just the graphics at 144. So we could probably have taken that further. This one was the full quality out of there. And we're now heading off into PDF Expert. So what's in there is another copy of the 100% It's Huge file. Only this time we're going to open that in PDF Expert. So open with PDF Expert. Now, the fly in the ointment with PDF Expert is I have no idea why I still have the ability to reduce the file size. That might sound weird, but I am not paying a subscription for this. I am a previous owner of what I think was version 6. And I am able to go into the App Store and install updates, but there are certain things that I cannot do that I would need a subscription for. So, for example, if I want to scan an OCR, need a subscription. When they introduced the subscription for this, we went over it in a presentation. And there was a huge swathe of features at the bottom of the list that you used to have that you will not have now without a subscription. And one of them was to reduce the file size. I am not paying a subscription. It's too expensive. It really is. Right, but I still have this reduce file size option. So I'm not complaining. I'm just going to use it. The reason that I think this is better than Acrobat is it gives me 4 options. The top one is lossless. So obviously at lossless, it's going to be the same size it is now. But it offers me high, which is 5.2 meg. But it also offers me medium and low. And as it says there, click to calculate. If I click on that, it will calculate it. And then I can think, what file size is likely to be correct. So that's 1.9, the medium. So it's looking to me that Acrobat must be using a really low compression to get 1.5 meg. But not quite as low as this could go, because that could halve that. Now we're down to 750k. Now, when you think of the file size of the original, that is utterly ridiculous. To go from 90 meg to less than 1 meg. The quality is probably going to be incredibly ropey. What I tend to do with PDF Expert is just take the high most of the time. So every week I do the church newsletter. It's done in Microsoft Publisher, don't ask. And it comes out and it's probably around 5 meg, something like that. I'm thinking the majority of people are accessing that on a mobile phone. So 5 meg on a mobile phone, given the age of some of the mobile phones involved here, is a bit much. So I run it through this and I get offered something like 2.1 meg at high, 1.9 meg at medium. And I think, well, the difference between those two isn't worth it. So I go for high. Obviously in here, there is a bigger difference, and that is because of the original file. So I would personally choose high and accept 5 meg. But I think you would probably be okay at medium because we've seen what a file at 1.5 meg looks like. But let's go crazy because we can. And let's say we'll have a low quality one at 705k and see what that is. It's going to overwrite the other one, but that's fine. And that is what that looks like. I can now start to see a difference. So even without zooming in, I can see it's a little bit more pixelated here. But, it's not that bad for the file size. That looks better than it did on the other one. So that's not too bad. Let's go through and find some of these. How are these? Shocking! So this is why I would check it and I would look at that and think that is appalling. So what it's done to do that is obviously downsize those images to something that's barely legible. Obviously, you can still see it's a field. Let's see if you can still see it's a dog. Yeah, you can just about still see it's a dog. There's the dog. Very pixelated though. But given what it is, so if it was photographs and you were just sending them out for people to view, you might get away with it. But for what I'm using here, you can't read these menus. So that's not going to work at all. So the low one didn't work and it's overwritten it. So that's fine. We've got another copy. So let's go back here to our full quality. This is why I'm keeping the full quality. And I'm putting a new copy of it in PDF Expert. And then I am opening it with PDF Expert. Let's try, because I know the high one will be all right, because I use that all the time. So let's try the medium one and hope that it's somewhere between the two. But this is what you have to do to get something that's acceptable given what the project is. So we'll go for 1.9. We know that the 1.5 was okay, so 1.9 should be all right. Now that's overwritten it, so I can just go straight into here and have a look at the text. I can at least read it. It's not great. It is pixelated. And you can see it's very pixelated around the text. So this is fine, but it's very pixelated around the text. Right, that is what it looks like for that one. But let's get the Finder and let's look at the one from Acrobat that was 1.5. Now, I don't know how it copes if the file names are the same. So we'll just do an open with and have a look at it. Right, so let's go down to the same image, that one there. Oh, I think it's better. I think the 1.9 is better than the 1.5. But when you zoom out, that actually doesn't look bad. But you can see in here that that is not particularly good, which is why I choose the other one. So I'm going to close those two down and tab back to here. I am going to add another copy of the full quality into here. Let's do a keep both on that. Right, so this one is my full quality. So again, I'm going to open that with PDF Expert. And this time when I reduce the file size, I am going to reduce it too high. And this is the one I actually use. Now for the newsletter, the church newsletter, it does a really good job because there's very little graphics in it. And there's certainly no graphics in it which have text on, which is causing the problem here. So I'm going to overwrite that one. And we'll go and have a look at it. So it's probably my type of graphics that's upsetting it. But that is all right. So I would keep to high on that. There is a little pixelation around this, but nothing like as bad as the other one. So when I'm compressing it, that's what I do. I use PDF Expert for it. I would imagine at some point I'm going to be cut off in my prime with that. And that's the problem with the Acrobat one. It doesn't give me enough control to know that I can say to it, don't compress those images because they look shocking. You'd have to really deep dive it. Now, if you don't have PDF Expert and now it's subscription, and you don't have Acrobat because, you know, it's subscription, then you're going to need another way to do this. And luckily I have another way to do it. Okay. Right. Oh, I'm going to look at that one, Debbie, next week because that's for iOS. So I'll be looking for that one. Right, let's get rid of this and let's go back in here and let's get the full quality one again. Right, so where on earth has that gone? Multiple things hanging around here. Ah, there you are. Right, there is another way, and I was really surprised when I found this. So it is a web-based solution. So here's hoping it works in Vivaldi. I will get Vivaldi on here and I will paste it in. Right, it is adobe.com and they let you compress PDF files for free. Who knew? Literally free. So you need to drag and drop the file in. So my file is behind this. So let's take that there. Obviously, you're going to have to upload it for a start. So it's a 90 meg upload. And if it's a private thing, you've got problems. Right. So why does that say best compression? But it's going to get, well, it's giving you, that is backwards to me. Because we're talking about quality, but that one's saying best compression, so the highest compression. So this option does not give you the option of like the 1.5 meg that Acrobat does by default. But you can see in here, you're going to end up with 29. Or you could go for medium, but we know we've got text on graphics, so I think we'd have to go for low at that point. So let's make it low, we'll hit compress. It compresses it, and then technically we should be able to download it. Now, the good news with this one is it's totally free. I don't know why it's not advertised on adobe.com, because it's Acrobat adobe.com. I found it on the Adobe India site. So I really don't know. They're not pushing it, let's put it like that. But this one is 90 meg. It's not going to take that long, I think, to compress. And then we'll download it and we'll have a look at the quality. This is by far the biggest file that any of the compression things have created. But it is a totally free option and you can use it anywhere you are. We might have to leave this and download it in a minute, mightn't we? Come on, you know you want to. Got any questions?
No.
No, it's still contemplating. Right, we'll come back to that shortly. There are other sites that you can upload to. Some of them look more dubious than others. So again, it's whether you would be prepared to upload your file there. I really don't know with some of them that I would. We will come back to that when it's finished. So I'm going to get rid of that over there. And hopefully it will finish at some point and we'll be able to return to it. But it's still saying it's compressing. Right, okay, what else have we got in there? One thing to think about, if you're compressing OCR files and you compress the images, they can be unreadable, but they're still workable because the OCR is in a separate layer. Just something to think about. Right, it's still not done it, so we'll get on and we will return to it. Right, some fun this. When I was working on that file, which I now need to give you a decent copy of, don't I, so you can upload it. Huh? And it's talking. I'll sort that. Right, while I was playing around with that file, I looked at the background and I thought, that's crying out for something, I thought. So I headed off to play with it. It was Play Day Tuesday. And it was this, which is my buff background, which was, I think I created that as a pattern. But then I thought it was crying out to have some tea or coffee stains on it. And I found a good way to do that. So let's go and have a look at that.
I could provide you with real ones.
Coffee stains?
Tea stains.
Oh, yes. Do you want to explain what happened before?
No. Go on, I will do.
Well, let me tell them my end of it for a start while I get this going. What are we looking at? Oh, I need publisher. Right. My end of it was there was an almighty crash. And I could tell from the crash, the style of the crash, that something had hit the radiator downstairs. Then there was another thud and then a thump. And I thought, is somebody breaking in? And then I thought, no, I can't hear anything from Mike. I'll leave him to it. So what happened?
I picked up Lola's water bowl to take into the kitchen to fill it up because she was desperate for dinner, even though she'd actually had some lunch. She acts like she's desperate for dinner, and I spilt some of the water. Luckily, I spilt the water onto her food mat. And as I picked up the water, I knocked the little plastic container that's got the keys that's on the radiator shelf, little shelf above the radiator. The keys then fell into the water bowl, and that then knocked the bottle of hand sanitizer on the floor as well. And then later on in the kitchen, I spilt some salt, and conscious of what you said earlier about salt in the dog's paws, I had to get the vacuum cleaner out and vac up the floor.
And I'm sitting upstairs thinking, leave him to it. Leave it, don't get involved. But you know, if that had been my mother, what are you doing? She'd have wanted chapter and verse on everything you'd done. This reminded me, we need to go on with this demo, but this reminded me of the time that you were taking a plate and a knife and fork downstairs. And the plate and the knife and fork all went downstairs separately and took a chunk out of the handrail.
Yes.
Yes, that's still there. And then he comes in really sheepish and said, I've had an accident. So it takes me out to have a look at it, thinking I'm going to go completely ape. I looked at it and said, was that the plate? He said, yes, but the plate didn't break. So, and I just burst out laughing. I'm not, no, it doesn't matter. Not that
back to school days. When somebody smashed a plate and then the whole dining room erupted.
Right, so back to what I was doing, which was making coffee stains on here. So what I've done is I've created a new file. Now, I do want it in Publisher. Most of the time, you'd be in Photo, I would have thought. But I want it in Publisher because I want to have alternative backgrounds. So I've put this on page 1, but actually I'd probably want 4, 5 different backgrounds with different stains on. So I would take this and cut it off there and put it on its background. It's struggling with this, I don't know why. Oh, good grief, it's actually sorted that other file out. Right, so I'm going into my A master eventually. Why have you not? Ah, hello. Right, so there's my A master. What I'm going to do with this is just duplicate it. So we'll have B and C and D and E. It doesn't really matter. I would probably name them That would be good practice, wouldn't it? But at the moment, I just want 5 of them to play with. So I need 2 things to make this work. I need some colour that is good for coffee, and I need some brushes. So I'll start off with the colour palettes, and I have a couple of those here. You've got the links for these, Mike. They are actually there. Right, so one was this one. So I went to Colour Hunt and I put in coffee, and it came up with these. Now, I mean, I don't have purple coffee myself, but then I don't drink coffee. But if you wanted it, my dad used to have tea that colour. But Mum was very milky with her coffee. So more this one. So what you can do here is just click on these, and that will take you through to it. Then it gives you the hex codes. So you can download it as an image. Some of them you can download the actual palette. But in here, you've got access to that, and I could just copy that. And if I click on there, it actually copies it to the clipboard, and I can use it straight away. So that was one option. Let's have a look. My other ones. No. That was a colour palette. Where's the other colour palette? This is another one. And it's finished loading. This one I put brown, and because they've got these colours here, so I just picked brown, and you've got some in there. So Mum's was milky like that, to be honest. But there's this colour that isn't bad. There's a darker one. So you've got a whole range that you can choose from. Don't just stick with a standard brown that you've got from Affinity. Because while something might look odd in here, like burnt sienna, I mean, that's orange. You don't have orange coffee. It might look a lot better when you get it on there. So you may not want something as dark as these really dark ones. That one and that one are particularly dark. So really it's just a matter of finding some colours however you find them. Another way to do it, there is colour.adobe.com, which is free. It used to be Cooler, Kuler, and it was fabulous. They then changed it to colour, and I don't know why, and now it's not got a U in it, and I'm upset. But what you can do in here is you can choose a colour. So if we take this down to this end, and we take that down to that end, we're heading to brown for coffee. What happens with the rest of it, these dots here, depends on what you've got selected over on this side. And if you change that, you do constantly have to keep going back in here, though, to be honest, and it is a bit of a pain. Move it that way to get a brown, and it gives you complementary or different colours. So complementary is this one. Again, you have to put the brown in, whether you want split complementary. You can move these around if you want. So you can do it up there by yourself. That doesn't look bad for coffee. I probably wouldn't have that one for coffee. But I can move them around in there. And then when I've got that, I can select it. So that is Adobe Colour. And I think I had one more. Did I have one more? Nope, I don't think I did. I think that was it. So I'm probably going to use something like that and to make a colour palette. So first thing I would do in here is make a document palette. So at the moment, I don't have a document palette. So up to the burger menu and create a document palette and call that document. It may have been wiser to call it coffee. Depends if I want to use it anywhere else. Yet we'll do that, you know, for a reason that will become apparent. So where's my rename option? Don't disappear on me. Rename palette. Right, let's rename that coffee. Okay, right. What I do with that, just purely for speed, is add something on there, go and grab the colour. So I'm grabbing it as a hex code, and in here, I just paste it into there. And we have a coffee colour, at which point I can right click on that, and I can add to swatches as a global from the fill. I'm just wondering if this will go to the coffee palette or if it'll create me another one. Let's see. Oh, good. It's not created me another one. Right, and then all I need to do is add these others. Now, you might wonder how I'm doing that. So we're not going to do it very well like that, are we? So let's move it to the right so I can see this thing. Right, I'm not going in here and clicking this and stuff like that because it's going to copy the hash with it by the look of it. What I'm doing is using Colour Slurp. So this is a Mac app and it just lets me click on there and copy that. So instantly I can go into there, do exactly what I did before. The colour is on the clipboard. It's slightly different, isn't it? And add that as global colour. So once I've got some of those, these look a little bit light to me, but we'll do from Phil. Right, let's go and get another one. Let's get a darker one. So let's go back and see if we've got a darker one. Yeah, possibly a bit dark. Some of these will do. Right, let's have that one. So I will copy that. Go into there. And add it as a global colour. All right, I've only done 3, but that's enough for principle, isn't it? Right. It is probably worth your while in here to rename these. So we'll have that as dark coffee. And we'll have that one. Let's put that at the top. I think that's the next one. So let's rename that. Light coffee. And we'll have this one as milk. That'll do. Right. Rename. Milk. Milk, not nilk. Oh, God. Don't go to Urban Dictionary and look at what nilk is. I have no idea, but it won't be good. I can hear you typing, Mike. I know what you're doing.
I'm sat here with my hands in my pockets.
Right. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Right, so I've got my colours up here. Now, if you'd import in these, you may want to make them global. Did I do the global thing? Why are you not global? Oh, I want you global. I thought I'd already done that. Now I've lost the names. Crying out loud. Right, let's delete it and start again. Yes, yes, yes. I want them global. I'm sure I did that as global. Losing my mind here. It's been that kind of day, hasn't it, Mike? Right. Let's rename it. It was dark coffee, wasn't it? Oh, why do it once when you can do it twice? And the last one was milk. Right. This is only the prep. Right. Okay. We are now good to go. Second thing I'm going to need is not artwork. It's brushes. So I did the search. So let's go back to Vivaldi for brushes. And I came up with quite a few. So Mike's going to post them in there in random order. But I did a search for brushes and I limited it to free brushes. And there's a lot out there. They are very different. And it's surprising how that one does look like tea and the others look like coffee. So there is a whole range of brushes out there for you to use. And depending on the precise circumstances, you may find some are better than others. The ones I decided to stick with was actually 100 brushes. But Brush Easy had a whole collection. And as you can see, you've got coffee stain and then you've got coffee stains 1, 2, 3, 4, you name it, you have all these coffee stains and these are free as well. So find the one that suits you. I think, where's mine? Oh, where is it? That's the one. It's the bottom one. All right. So again, they're all very, very different. Just depends on what you want. I decided to go with this one, which is from Deal Jumbo. Don't panic at the $27. It's not for this. Right. This is 100 brushes. They are very high quality. They're 4K. I know it says they're for Photoshop, but they also work in Affinity, all the Affinity apps. So I went with this one. Now, the thing with this is, and it says you can use it for both personal and commercial, you do need to give an email where they send you a link and you then download it from the link. They do not spam me. They actually have my real email address and they don't spam me. They send me one email every day with free resources in it. So those are the ones that I will be using. But as you see, there's a whole range of others available there. So we'll get that out of the way and we'll go get the brushes, which are in the downloads folder, having downloaded them just before we started. So what you get as a download is this. So it's a zip file. Inside the zip file, you get a range of content, including the brushes. So I'll unzip that. They work on Windows and Mac and iOS. So open up that and you've got a whole thing in here. So this is where it came from. These are the promo images, just to show you what you're getting. Then you've got your license. You've got the README text. You've got the support for the author. And finally, in that folder, you actually have the brushes. So you've got the license, the more design resources, and there are the brushes file. So the brushes file is an ABR, which is an Adobe brush file. But you'll notice under kind, it says Affinity Openable. Now, I didn't set anything up for that. And I have Photoshop installed. I have Illustrator installed. I have InDesign installed. So I would have expected that to default to Photoshop, but it didn't. But what I can do with it is I can either right-click and then choose what to install it with. But if I move that out of the way and I go over, in fact, that's what I'll do. I'll do it that way because it's easier, isn't it? So I'll just right-click on that. And when it says Open With, now the Open With has been grabbed by the Affinity Publisher 2 beta. And the reason that's happened is that was the last app I installed of the Affinity suite. So sometimes you've got weirdness going on here. Sometimes you have stuff registered to open with Affinity Designer 1 and you're thinking, I want that with 2. You can control all of this. So that might be a way to go before we start. But I ultimately want it installed in Affinity Publisher 2. Now, I'm never going to want that as the default. Probably with brushes, I'd want the default to be photo. That's easy enough to do. I bring up the info. This is on a Mac. It's slightly different on Windows. But in here, this is what it's going to open with. And normally, I would reckon photo. So click Change All and continue. And that will be the default. So to see the default, if you go in there and right click and do your open with, you can see that that is at the top. But I don't want it opening with that one. I want it opening in here. So I'm just going to choose Affinity Publisher. Right, and hopefully that will have worked, because I've got a spinning beach ball, so that's always a good start, isn't it? Something must be happening, you'd think. Here's hoping it's working, let's just say that. Right, now, what I need to do in here, I imported, excellent. Right, so it's imported the brushes. Now, in here, I need a brush tool, and I need to get some brushes on here. So I'm going to switch using Studio Link into the photo persona, and here are my brushes. And I think that is my brush tool over there. Brush tool, right. So at the moment, I think we've got one of these, which is fairly straightforward and self-evident. You'll see up here that I do have my coffee palette. So let's start off with one that's quite dark. I think we'll have a dark one. But first of all, we need to find these brushes, because these are the basic default brushes. But in here, you have a range of brushes. Now, hopefully it's installed them. It has, I can see them. You might be wondering what on earth all these are. The water splashes and the bouquet stuff and the smoke. This is because I did a freebie of 12 brush collections. And I installed them to create the file that gave you the demos. So that's why I've got a lot in here. You probably won't have as much. But down there we have Coffee Stain Photoshop Brushes 2. So I'll go into there. And you can see with the preview thumbnail over here, which is which. So I click on that, and I probably want it smaller than that, so I'm using the square brackets. What you don't want to do with this style of brush is draw, because I have seen offices that look as bad as that, but not many. So it's best if you just click once. So find somewhere that you may want this. I tend to have it hanging off the end as well, and just click once, and that gives you that kind of effect. Now you've got a lot of brushes in here as well, so there's a lot of different brushes in there, and I personally, with this style of brush, find the preview totally useless. And it also means, because the preview is from this on the left all the way across to the right, it's a waste of space. It tells me nothing. So in the options that you have the option to show as a list. If you take the tick out of that, it will actually preview as thumbnails. And that is much more useful. For brushes like this, that is perfect. So I might want to try that one. Obviously not quite that big. Want that a bit smaller. There. Change this. Have one hanging up like that. That one looks pretty good as well. It needs to be smaller. Have that dribbling off the bottom there. So seeing these as a thumbnail is particularly useful as far as I'm concerned. Now, that is probably way too much for what I actually need, because I need some space on here to put the text. This is going to be like a messy, grungy background, so I need some space. So probably leave it at just the one. Now, what I can do with that, I've got my cover here. You can see that. And that's the one that I'm drawing on according to this. But as I go back in here, remember that I'm working on Master A. So it's Master A that I'm working on there. Which means when I go to the next one, I'm now working on Master B, and then I'll switch back to here. Now, you can navigate without going backwards and forwards. If you look, and the reason that the brush is looking like that is because that's the active brush, but down here, and I don't think I can have the pointer. Oh, there we go. That's not too bad. Down here, right in the bottom left-hand corner, it says Master B. And if I can just get this. Oh, this is not easy when that's on that. Right. I can move this. So I'm now on Master C, Master D, Master E. I can even type in there if I want to. So you can do that without moving backwards and forwards. Most people tend to move backwards and forwards, but you can use that. So let's have a milky thing and go and choose a different one. Something like that, but not that big. And as I say, I want to have some space on this where I can actually type. So I'm really putting this on here and leaving myself some space to put a text frame later. So that one, I probably want something slightly darker in the middle. So that looks like a spill all the way around it, like that. Oh, I'm having too much fun here. So move on to Master C, choose a different one. We got something that's pretty different. We'll have a dark one on that. And we'll have that hanging off the other side. And we've got two more to do. It is disconcerting when that looks weird. Right, and that again is far too big. So we'll have that down there. And maybe put something smaller on there like that as well. Oh yes, that looks messy enough, doesn't it? Loving this. Right, and then go on to Master E. And choose something different for that one. What have we got? Oh, we got a double one there. There we go. Put that on. And maybe something a bit weaker around it like that. Take that down there. Make that lighter. And put that in the middle like that. And we've got them. So let's go back over here. So what we've now got, this is, we need some pages. So let's put 4 pages in and apply one to each. So that's the A. They're all going to be A at the moment. Let's go into there and apply a master, make that B. And obviously then I need to put my text frames in. So I would go and get my text frames, work with the margins and put them like that. Now, once I'd got this far, I was like, So I would probably want to use this concept in other files. I've got a couple of options to do that. I can either up here make these system palettes, or I could make them application palettes. Or I could leave it at a document palette. But if I leave it at a document palette, I'd have to know where the document was to go and extract the palette from it. I don't think I want to overload the system palettes, which are these ones down here. The only things that go in here are things that are installed by the system, which is the Apple one, the crayons. I have a MacBites one because I use MacBites colours all over the place. So I installed that one. And the 2 Microsoft ones and the Notion one. The Scrivener one was installed by Scrivener. so don't touch it. And then there was System and WebSafe, and they were installed. So I don't really want to have this overwhelmed with a lot of colour palettes that I only use on rare occasions. But what I can do is export that. So export the palette, and I actually have somewhere to put that. So in Dropbox, Application Support, Affinity Apps. Now you can see I've got Affinity Apps, Designer, Photo and Publisher. Colour palettes can work in any of the three. So that would go in my apps folder. And I've got assets, fonts, and another Affinity fonts and none other fonts. What I don't have is colour palettes. So I will create a folder for colour palettes and put it in there. And you can see it's already picked up the name of coffee. The beauty of doing that is it's also picked up the fact that it is a document palette with global colours in it, which the Adobe Swatch Exchange files can't do. But now that is backed up, and you know, we've all done this. You've exported it. Oh, I've exported it now. Back it up later. I'll put it in the right place later. Have the right place there to start with and put it in there at the beginning, because otherwise you'll never find the thing and you'll end up wasting time recreating it. So that's why I have that series of folders, the 4 folders in the root of my application support on Dropbox. They're available to me on any computer, but also my mobile devices, without having to go and find them locally and then put them in a cloud. They are in the cloud to start with. And we are sorted with that. Now, the other thing to think about is, if we go back into here and we look at the brushes panel, these brushes were Adobe brushes, and I've changed the look and feel in here. But what I might have done is added some of my own or edited them in some kind of way. So what I can also do from here is export the brushes. Now you might be thinking, but that's superfluous. You've got the originals. I do, but they're not in Adobe. They're in Adobe format. They're not in Affinity format. So if I go up to my Affinity apps, and they could well be in fonts, you know. No, maybe not. I think assets are assets as well. So I'll make another folder for brushes, brush collections. And because I'm making my own, coffee stains, and I certainly don't need Photoshop in there, do I? And, you know, they're brushes, so I don't need brushes either. But coffee stain too would be enough for me to find the originals. So I'm only making this change for me, so my list of brushes is neat and tidy and I can instantly see which is which. I'm not passing this around in any way. So I'm not changing it with a view to doing anything nefarious with it. I'm just changing it. 1, so it's native Affinity format, and 2, so it's easy for me to work with, and save that in the brushes. And then when I need to reinstall that or install it on mobile, again, I go to the one single source of truth for all my assets and content. Tell me in the chat that you do this as well. Let me know that. Right, before I move on to something else, so let's get that down there, I wanted to show you that this has finally finished processing. So this was the one that we uploaded to Adobe, and then we waited and waited that. And this is what we've ended up with. So front cover looks okay. Let's have a look at the text. Not bad. So I'll have to use my zoom in here. Not bad at all. That is readable. In fact, that looks really good. So I doubt it's going to be that small, if you remember. But I would need to download it. Having uploaded it to Adobe, I then need to download it. Now, I don't know. It's not telling me. I don't know whether it's just going to download it with the same name. And put it in my downloads folder, or if it's going to stop and ask me. Doesn't look like it's going to stop and ask me. So let's have a look in the downloads folder. So I think that's a download folder, isn't it? Downloads. Right, there it is. Oh, it lied. It's 9 meg. Didn't it say it was going to be 27? And we accepted that. Well, there it is. Let's have a look at the dog and the text on the dog. Yep, that is perfectly reasonable. Right, let's open it up in Adobe. It was a big mistake, wasn't it? Oh no, there it goes. Not bad. Right, let's have a look in here for some with text on it. And zoom in. Absolutely fine. For 9 meg. So that had been reduced by 90%, and I didn't choose the lowest one. and that's totally free on their website. So something to contemplate, because that would work. You wouldn't need an app on mobile to do that, but there are apps on mobile, and we will look at that next week. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Do we have any questions?
No.
Right, let me get rid of all of this and head back in here. So these were the brushes. Mike has put the link in the chat. Remind me to put the link in the description later. I found those incredibly high quality, but I did also create my own copy in Affinity format. Oh, this is going to be a bit naughty now. Which version of this file are we going to use for this? We already have a copy of this up there, right? So what I'm doing is, I created for Affinity Publisher the Secrets Guide, and I then created one for Designer. And earlier this week, I created one for Photo. Now, don't do anything yet. Don't do anything. Mike, don't put the thing in yet. Right, the one that is up there, did I make any changes to it? It was the one with the dog.
I don't know.
I don't think I did, you know. Oh, let's just do it. Right. It is there, available for your viewing pleasure. So that's the QR code, and Mike's going to put the link in. Now, it looks like a sign up. That's because it is. You need to click the Get Guide Now button. But if you are already on my list, you won't be added twice. So just click the link, put your details in. It will then send a mail back, and it'll have a link in it. You won't get a second mail. If you are not subscribed, you will get a second mail. It's all very clever, this. And that will ask you to confirm your subscription. And that's up to you whether you want to confirm it or not. So have you put the link in for that?
No, because I don't have the link.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yes.
He's lost it.
I'm going to find
Yes, he's not on the right page, are you?
No.
Well, when you get it, why don't you copy it into the show notes like I should have done?
Okay.
Don't start or I'll mention 7 again. Right, so we'll move on from there. The link will be in the chat. Stat. Right, so Obsidian. All right, after last week when we looked at the Kanban, I said there was a better way. Now, when I say better, if you just want quick and dirty and you just want a quick and dirty Kanban, the Kanban thing is great. You can also link that with other plugins, and it's nice and it's simple to use. If you want something more, so I've called that Notion style. So some people look at Notion and look at Obsidian and say that they're kind of interchangeable. And I'm like, really? I love Obsidian. I live in Obsidian, but it's not multiplayer, and Notion is. So I need to share all of my stuff with Mike. Now, I do know people who have organised multiplayer with it, with Obsidian. It's not quite multiplayer in terms of you can't edit the same page at the same time. But apart from that, you can create a Notion-style project management system. And that is what we're going to look at. It is a community plugin. It's totally free, and it is amazing in terms of the depth that you could achieve. Right, the thing that makes the most sense for me to use that for is YouTube videos, live sessions, blog posts, jobs like that. Projects that do have a start point, work to do, and an end point, rather than a to-do list. I guess you could use it as a to-do list, but it makes sense to me. Something that has a start date, something that has work, and something that has a finish date. So you can change the status of things going on there. So let's have a look at that. Now, for reasons best known to itself, my demo vault took a long time to open and I got nervy with it. Right, this is the demo vault that we've been using all the way along. I think over here, yeah, we've got the inbox, we've got the periodic notes, which is where the calendar notes are, and then I've powered it with projects, areas, resources, and archives. What I'm going to be doing with this one is creating an extra folder, so all of the projects that we look at are in this separate folder. But first of all, you need the extension, the plugin. So if I go off to my preferences, and I look to browse the plugins, of which there are 880. I am looking for one that is called Projects. And it is this first one by Marcus Olson. I can't actually believe that's only had 45,000 downloads, because it really is that good. Now, it came out about 4 or 5 months ago now. And as you can see, it was updated a couple of months ago as well. So this is the one that I'm looking for. So it doesn't make any changes to Obsidian in terms of sidecarring something on to handle a project. As it says, it's plain text project planning. So you could actually open these files and look at them individually rather than through this plugin. It's not adding anything weird to it. So there's all the instructions for how to go about it and get it installed and configured. So first of all, I'll use the install button and it's going to install it. Right, it's successfully installed. Now at this stage, it's not enabled. There is an enable button here. And if we go back into our community plugins here, we have projects at the bottom and an option to toggle it on, which gives us the cog, the one that doesn't like Jammy. Jammy loses the cog, but there's the cog. Right, that cog gives you access to the settings for the projects plugin, which you can also get to on the left-hand side under projects. Now, as you can see, there's not much there. It's not that complicated. There isn't much to configure. So at this point, you might be flummoxed thinking, well, nothing's been added into my vault. And I've obviously got no interface for this. What do I do? But Command and P and projects. Right, you then have two options. You can either show the projects or create a new project. I'm sure I got something entirely different, but we'll create a new project. No, that's not what I want to do at all. What I wanted to do, let me have a look and see if it's in here. No. What I wanted to do, which I might have to do from back in here, is I wanted in there a sample one. Where's my sample one? Right, Obsidian projects. Nope. That is giving me the hotkey access to it. But I wanted a demo project, which I was given an option for when I installed it the last time, and I'm not getting that this time. So unless I can do it when I create new, I'm going to have to fiddle. Right. I go and create a new project. I'm not seeing demo as an option. So that's fine. I've got it installed in another installation of this. So let me go to that and show you what I've got on here. Okay. What we're now going to be looking at, just so you can see this demo version. Come on. Over you go. Right. This is my live vault. That's dangerous, isn't it? Right, and this has it configured, and I have been inside there. So let's get rid of all of that. It's this one here. So I have my inbox, periodic notes, and para, exactly the same as the demo vault. But I also installed projects, and I created a demo version of it. So I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Within it, this is what it gives you. So if I do my Command and P in here, and I do my projects, I should be able to see the projects. There are the projects. I'm going to close that down. And these projects that you see in here are the same as these in here. So these are notes. This is a different view. So I'm going to close that up so we can concentrate on this. So this is, you should be offered a demo project, but obviously you can create your own projects. But this is what I got. I didn't specify anything to get this. It just offered me a demo project, and that's what I went with. So the first view that you have of your project, this is your project homepage. And you are given, there are 4 different views. There are table views, board views, a calendar view, and a gallery view. Now, the entire plugin is also extensible, so other plugin developers could create a 5th or a 6th view, and it would work with this, which is quite exciting looking forward. So this is the demo project. As I've said, you can have more projects. So if we look up here, it says demo project. This is the one project I've got, but I could duplicate it, delete it, and I could edit the project. But this is the one we're working on, and we are looking at the table view. So in here, we have the records 1 to 5 for the notes that are in the project folder. So if I show you that project folder and I click on here, you can see that is what it looks like. So that is an individual note which becomes a project within your projects, and the others look the same. Now, I have mentioned this briefly, but the way that this works, these notes here aren't just standard notes. They do have a heading 1 in, which is what the project is called. This information above we've briefly talked about before, and it's YAML, which stands for yet another markup language. And it's special codes put between 3 minus signs. So there's the 3 minus signs at the top, 3 at the bottom. And there is a definition, and then there is the data next to it. So the definition here is for status, finishes with a colon, and done is the status. Due is another property of it, and this is when it was done. Then you've got, is it published? And that's yes or no. So it's true or it's false. Then you've got the weight, which is the importance of it and the value for it. Then you've got tags. Now the tags is syntactically slightly different. You have the tags and you have the colon, which indicates that's the variable that's there. That's the property. But then underneath that, you have 2. You have note taking as a tag, and you have Obsidian as a tag. And if you wanted to add more, you would just press enter and add more. So I could go down there and I could put another tag. And that is how they are added. That should probably be lowercase. So very, very simple. Tags need dashes as well. No spaces in tags. So you could do that. The interesting one is the one at the bottom, which is the image. So if you are coming to this from Notion, you obviously love the aesthetic of Notion, don't we all? It has that gallery view, and you can add in an image. You can put it below the fold in Notion. You can add it as a property in Notion, and it will show in certain views. And that's what that is doing here. The image is coming from that link. So that's an Unsplash image. It doesn't matter whether it's an image of yours, an image somewhere else. Obviously, that is an image on the web. And it is using that to represent that project. So although this is still a plain text note, it doesn't look like that. Half of that is coming from the code, from the developer who has written the views, and the other half, in terms of the images, is coming from the fact that you have added that image tag. So let's go back to where we were, which is there. So those are the 5 notes. You can see there's the due date. That's where they're coming from. Now, let's say with one of these, so this is the 17th of January. If I'm thinking with that, I want to change that. If I double click it, instead of it going into edit mode and I can type it in, I actually get this lovely control where I can say, I'm moving that to today. So I can change those dates. The images are the links to the image. So these names across the top, you can now see where they're coming from. They're coming from the YAML front matter. And that's why we're seeing them up there. I said that published was a yes or no. And that's why it's showing like this. So I can make that published or I can slide it off. It's amazing that you can do this just from plain text. It's stunning. Then you have a status, doing backlog, done, backlog. Now, you may not want to see one of these columns in this particular view, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can go in here and hide the field. Note the difference between hiding the field and deleting the field, obviously, but you could do that. In this tags column here, you can see this one, number 3, was the one that I edited, and I put in another tag. To see that properly, I'm going to have to widen it a bit, but there's the tag that I added in. So you can edit this just by editing the YAML front matter. You don't need to go in and use this particular view to edit it. Sometimes, what I do a lot in Obsidian is I've got text that I want to put in from something. So maybe it's text from an email or something like that. And for me, it would be text from an email that I've registered for an event and it's saying what the stated intention of the event is. And I don't copy and paste that straight into Obsidian because it copies a load of rubbish with it. So I take it into a text editor and I tidy it up before I bring it into here. So I'm used to tinkering at the really low base level. So you don't need to come into here for everything. If you've got the note open, you can change it in the YAML front matter. So let's do that on one of these. So let's open up why you should take more notes. So I've opened it up over here, and you can see at the moment, let's lose that so we can see it, it's not published. Why you should be taking more notes. So if I go in there where it says published and it's false, and I put true, that automatically slides that way. It's genius, isn't it? Just by changing that. So if I happen to be in here typing things in, I don't have to go back to that view to change any of this. Just change what's in the YAML front matter. If you are not interested in the YAML front matter, if it's like, oh, that freaks me out, then ignore it and use this view. So back in here. You can move these around. So if it's important, if the weight is important, then you should be able to grab that. It's not having it. I thought you could. I swear I've done this. Never mind. Right, so this is just one view. Now, there are also additional things with this, which is colour, for example. So there is an option to add a colour. So if I tick on that, it's not just randomly adding a colour, it's based on a criteria. So make it purple where, but we'll change purple. We'll change that to a green.
Kim's got a question about YAML.
Okay.
What does the weight value mean in YAML?
The weight value is no different than anything else. It's just a name for a property. In here, it means the importance. So if we take 1 as being the importance, then number 4 is the most important, followed by number 3, followed by number 1, followed by number 2. So I think weight in this demo project means importance. If importance makes more sense to you, then call it importance. It literally makes no difference. So we'll leave that, and we will go back over here. Oh, that might cause grief. Hang on, let's not do it that way. Let me do it in here. You could change that. When you decide what columns you want, you could call that importance. I could do that right now, but if I do, let me configure it from here. Right, it's saying weight, and it has a file type of number. But if I wanted that to say importance, I just do that. They don't have the titles, the names of these things have no special meaning in YAML. It's just plain text that is then interpreted. I had to do that way because if I went back over here and I picked up one of these and thought, well, I'll just change weight to importance, I would only have done it in one note. I would then have manually had to have gone through the other 4. Don't want to do that. So that was why I did it the proper way, which was in here, and then rename it. Okay. Have we got any other questions?
No.
Right. So we'll go back to the colour. And I was adding a colour, and I was adding a green. And I was adding a green and then giving it a criteria. So it's not where the name is something. I would want it where the published was something. So if the published is checked, I'd like it to be green. And what that gives me over on the left-hand side is I've got a green stripe on the ones that are published. Now, that makes sense to me because if it's published, it would be green and I wouldn't need to do anything with it. It would also mean I could hide the published column if I wanted to, if I was never going to interact with that in here. But it's just a nice thing that you can add to it. And you're not limited to just one either. If I wanted to go back in there and say, so it's going to be red, where the published is not checked, which means I need to get on with it. So that's giving me criteria. I could do exactly the same with the importance, or whether there's an image there, whether the date has gone and I should have published it. It's just a nice addition to it. Now, if you've got hundreds of things in here, then you may want to filter it. So you can add a condition for that. So if I wanted in there to see, so let's say the published is not checked. These are the two things I need to work on because they're not checked. Then I can filter it. That gives you a nice view on there, and then you hit the bin to get rid of it. Right, you can also choose in here what fields you hide. So as I was saying with the published, if I don't want to interact with the published, but I'd not like to know if it is published or not, I can add the colours, which I have done, but then go and turn off the published so I don't actually see it. So you could create many of these views, all differently configured based on criteria. I mean, there's no point seeing the image in this view really, because you're not looking at the image. So you can do this. I mean, if you've used Notion, this should be very, very familiar to you. So that is the first view, which is the table view. Then you have the board view. Now the board view is like the Kanban view. And you've got different criteria in here. So this time it's arranged by status. So how does it know about doing, backlog and done? And backlog should probably be over there because it's usually backlog, doing and then done. And that's because it organises this board view by status. So it actually says the word status here, but you can choose what that is. So if you wanted to know in there, there's not much you can actually do with that, is there, but importance. Importance would say, you know, you've got one that's a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, and this one's got no status. So the status is the term they're using to create columns from your data based on the value of the field that you select from this drop-down. So if I had another one that was another 3, then I would have 2 in the 3 column. You'll notice that not all of the fields are available in here. So not everything can pivot to a board. And status in here is probably the one that makes most sense. It's a shame published isn't there, which is a yes or a no. And it's probably not there because it is a yes or a no. For me, my published status is more, you know, it's an idea. It's in production, it's been edited, it's been published, that kind of thing. It's not just a plain yes or no, in which case I would be able to use it in here. But status will work quite nicely now. Then you've got this priority, and you can say whether it's due or it's important. And you get to choose the fields. So what you've got here, these are the same data fields that you had in the table view, obviously, because you're based on the same notes in that project folder. So do you want to see the name? I think pretty much we got the name, haven't we? Yeah. We might want to see when it's due. So that turns on a name of the field and also a value. Now you might instantly think, oh, I don't want to see the word due. I know what that means. But in Notion, we didn't have the ability to turn that on. In fact, I don't think you still do. There's a dirty hack. But you basically have to create an extra field with a label because you may have more than one date. And it may be very important that you know whether it's the due date or whatever date, the start date. So it does put that in. You can also in here put the image, but that's not what you're thinking, is it? It just shows you the value of that. It's not the actual image. Hang on for that. So we'll toggle that off. You've then got its importance, which was its weight. The ones that are done, that does actually make sense because the 1 and the 2 are done. The 3 is doing. So if you found that you had 5 mistakes when I was starting using Obsidian in the doing, but the 3 and the 4 in the backlog, you're not doing the right thing. So that might be useful to see. You could add the publish to it, which is then that slider. But the thing with that is you're already seeing the status. So that's probably overkill. But you can add your tags in if you want to see your tags as well. So these are just the fields that get shown in that board view. Again, you can add colours in exactly the same way, and you can filter in exactly the same way. And we've got the cog up there, which is the board settings, so you can actually change the column width if you want to. That would be amazing in Notion. We don't have that. We have small, medium and large, and none of them work for me, which is typical. Right, the next view we have, and again, it's the same data based on the same YAML headings, is a calendar view. So this one I actually changed to today, and it's showing in there. So what we've got in here is it's set to be today, and the date is set to be showing you the due date, and there's only one date in that data. But if there are multiple dates, if there's a start date and a review date and a completion date and a post-project review date, you could have different views set up showing you that particular date. So you choose the date that you want. So this one is today, but the other ones were February, I think, end of January and February. They are in here. You can see that you've got your tick, so you can tick something off from in here, and you can get to the information from in there. So I can click on it and I can edit all of that information. I mean, point 1, I can see it, and point 2, I can edit it from in here. Right, then you've got whether it's published or not. So that's the check that's showing. So the word check indicates to you what is here shown for you to check. So whether it is published or not is shown. The only one we've got is published because that is Boolean. It's either yes or it's no. So it doesn't list all the rest of the fields unless it makes sense to have a value set to yes or no, 1 or 0. That's why that's the only one there. But remember, if you had multiple things, you know, has so-and-so reviewed it, and have we done this and have we done that, you could have those showing if you wanted to. Now, this view is showing you a month. You might not want a month. You might want 2 weeks. And that way, if you've got a lot of projects on each day, you can see more of them. So that's the month, the 2 weeks. You also have the 1 week, which is something I have waited 5 years for in Notion, and it arrived a couple of weeks back. You've got a 3-day view, which I've seen that in Microsoft Outlook, and a couple of iOS calendars, and is actually quite useful. It's really useful if you put your today in the middle, so you can see yesterday and you can see what's due tomorrow as well. And finally, you have a day view if you only want to focus on the day. I think the happy medium there is probably the week. That would work quite nicely. So that is the calendar view. Right, the 4th view is the gallery view. This is where you see your images. So it has available up here, the first thing, what to use as the cover, because it's a gallery. So if it's a gallery, it should really have an image, shouldn't it? So it's asking you what to use for that. Now, you can see here, it's also got name and path and status. What? So we could change that to name and it doesn't actually show anything. That's because it's not an image, but it doesn't know that because YAML is just text. So if we go into there and choose our image, it does mean you can have multiple images. So each of these projects could have 3 images, and you could make a distinction as to which image you want shown. But that is how you see your image on there. You also in here get an option for how the images work, which again, Notion does its own thing. It drives me insane. So in the fill image, you can either fill the image or you can fit the image. Oh, if Notion had that. That obviously in this view gives you stripes down the side that you don't particularly want. And if you look at those images aren't all the same size. The one, number 2 and number 3, what I learned from taking 15,000 notes and the easiest way to start taking notes, are wider than the other 3. So you would probably never get those looking about right. So the option here to fill with the image is great. The only thing I'll say about that gives you consistency and it looks fantastic. But what I will say is if your images have text on them and they go towards the edge, you may well lose some of the text off the edge. So my Notion gallery has posters for the shows, and the shows have got show numbers and text on, and it cuts them off whenever it feels like it, really. Maybe I should use just nice graphics like this, but it does give you the option here. Then you have the option to include the fields. Now, at the moment, you're looking at the image and you have access to the title of the project. But in the include fields, you can put extra information in. So if you wanted to know when that was due, you can toggle that on, and you're toggling it on just for the gallery view. You can toggle on the importance if you want to see that. And what's happening is it's just adding it underneath. If there is no importance, like this last one, it doesn't leave it blank. It just doesn't show it. That's good and it's bad. It's good because you don't have something that then says you've got nothing in this field. But it's not so good that your published is now out of sync on the 5th one from the other 4. So what I do in circumstances like that, I usually change them round. So I've got like one at the bottom. I like to have the date at the bottom and the date always in the same place so I can see it and know about it. But this is what you've got on here. So I'm turning all of these on so you can see it. If it's a gallery view, I tend to put on as little as possible. I would probably leave that at just when it's due. That would make the most sense to me. But your mileage may vary depending on what it is. All right. We also have in here the card width. So again, if you want to try and make the graphics fit, I could do that with my posters. My posters are at 16:9 ratio, and I could do that by changing the card width. Can't do that in Notion. So that's a lovely option to have as well. You also have the colour. So just like we did with the others, where you add a colour where, so we'll make it, most of them are already purple. So we'll do a nice green again, where published is checked. And that gives us a stripe next to the title, and it goes all the way down the side. So if you added more data to it, that green stripe would go further down. So let's include a couple of extra fields like that, and you can see it takes it down the side. So nice feature there. You can also filter these. So if you only want to see in your gallery something that's not been completed, so if it's published is not checked and you only want to see work that you need to work on, there you go. You can apply a filter to it. And all of that is built off plain text and a YAML header. Now, you can use like YAML headers all over the place. I'll be honest with you, I tend not to. If I was using the projects, and the reason that I don't use this projects thing is it's only been out a couple of months. It's really capable. And if I had a small project, I would probably use it. But the primary reason that I don't use it with real data is I need to share that data. And that's where Notion shines, sharing it. If it was something that was wholly personal and I didn't need to share it, I would be using Obsidian. Because Obsidian is great on mobile and Notion does its own thing, drives me insane. Have you noticed how many times I'm saying Notion drives me insane? But it does. It's too controlling. And I love the fact that I could edit this, even if Obsidian was having a moment, I could drill down into my system and ultimately I'm editing a markdown file. So there would be no situation, which I have had with Notion and other systems, where I can't log in at the moment. It doesn't want to know. So I'm going to have to make a note on a post-it note to go and mark that one as complete. And then it's like, what's coming up next? I've no idea because I can't log in. So I love the idea of having this synchronizing in Obsidian, and it's just plain text. And no matter what, I know I could get into it and I know I could make it work. I love that. So I will probably try it on a real project that's a personal project. That is something I don't have to share. So the live sessions that we do, Mike needs access to it because he's TAing me, technical assistanting me. The MacBites needs to be shared. Pretty much everything we do needs to be shared. But if I can find a project that does not need to be shared, I'll do it this way. And then I will report back. But that is the projects plugin. So it's completely free. And as I say, you can extend this, and other people are working with the developer of the plugin to extend it in various ways, which is really exciting. I think if you're relying on one person, there's a lot of pressure on that person. And I think what they've already built is amazing. So now's the time, get other people involved in it and just think where we can go. It's amazing. So do we have any questions on that?
We do have one question from Sarah.
Right.
She says, can you have the same item have multiple lined colours?
Multiple lined
So it's when you were
colours.
talking about colours earlier.
Oh, right. Let's have a look. Let's take away the filter for a start. So bin the filter. Right. So we've got these two. We've got 3 of them as due. So what we need to do is find something else. Let's have a look at the table. Right. What if we wanted... what if we changed the importance of these? So we wanted a colour for an importance. So let's say we made 2 of them a 1. So these 2 at the bottom, 4 and 5, it's green because it's done. This one's red because it's a backlog, but both of them are priority 1. So could we show that? Let's have a look. So we've got 2. Let's add another one and say where the importance is equals 1. Let's see what it does with that. Right, let's have a look. No, it doesn't look like it. It looks like if I were to take away these top 2, let's make this something very different, like a blue. Right, let's make it blue. Right, it is showing these 2, but it's not showing the 3rd one. I wouldn't expect it to, because the interface would have to change to give it room. But I would reckon if I delete one of these... if I delete the green, I would expect 4 to go blue, and if I delete the red, I would expect 5 to go blue. So let's delete the green, and straight away that one goes blue. So no, it can only show the first criteria that's matched, which is what I would expect, to be honest. Do we have anything else?
We do, from Jamie, who's just posted, said, I've only seen bits and bobs of this. Is this the project's plugin by Marcus Olsen?
Yes, it is. That's the one. So last week we looked at the Kanban, which gives you a simple Kanban. This week we've looked at the projects one that gives you 4 views. It's got table, board, calendar and gallery. The other thing that this has that the Kanban one doesn't need is that this is supported with YAML, which means it's extensible in terms of the fields that you can put in here. So if you think about the Kanban, you're dragging the card. This is the Kanban plugin. You're dragging the card to mean something, which for me is a pipeline. It's a process. You know, have you edited this video? And then I'm moving it along the pipeline. But with this one, I can add a lot of extra information that makes much more sense to see it in a table or a board or a calendar or a gallery. So I would say between the 2, I would use the Kanban if it was something really simple. But other than that, this one is by far the best because of the different views. But yes, you've got the right one. And what do you mean you only saw bits of it?
His other half called him away.
Well, that's just not on. Does he not know it's MacBites After Hours?
Maybe he did it on purpose.
Oh, that's criminal. That's not allowed. Right, is that it? Do we have any other questions?
They stuck another one in. Are there any other essential community plugins that you recommend?
I don't actually use that much in the way of plugins. I'm very careful with them. So remembering that this is my live vault, this is what I've got installed. So this advanced URI thing, I did install it. You know, obviously it didn't install itself. I did install it, but I installed it because I wanted to be able to search Obsidian from Raycast. So if I go up here to Raycast and Obsidian, you can see I've got Obsidian, which is the application, but then I've got a whole range of commands underneath it. So do you want to append something to the daily note? Do you want to go to the daily note? Do you want to search for a note? Do you want the menu bar? All of those only work. You need 2 things to make those work. One is you need this advanced URI plugin, and the other is you need the plugin in Raycast, and the 2 then talk to each other. So that wasn't something I particularly chose to install for the good of my health. That was just something that I wanted Raycast to work, so I had to install it. The calendar one is the calendar that appears in the top right. Where's my other vault? Let's leave that one there. Demo vault. Right. Didn't we set up the calendar? We did. It's that. So that up there That is what the calendar plugin gives you, right? So that's why I had that one there. Let's get rid of that. Move that. What else have we got? Data view. Data view also uses YAML. And what it enables you to do is to pull together an index of notes that meet a certain criteria. Now you can get really advanced with that. You can have it fairly basic, which is show me everything in the inbox folder. And why that's better than having an index note for your inbox is it's automatically updated. So it's a data-driven thing and it works with YAML. But I don't do really advanced things with it. Fleeting Notes was an app that is for iOS. And basically, Obsidian does not excel at quick capture. It's great, but you have to be on the right page to type in your stuff. So the Fleeting Notes app works a little bit like Drafts. You open it, there's a note, start typing, and then it will synchronize with Obsidian. I thought it sounded fabulous. My issue with it is it's something like $36 a year, which is a little excessive, I thought, for what it did. And the other thing was trying to keep it in sync and whether it was a one-way thing. So it still sat there, but I must admit I'm not using it. Then we've got the Kanban, which we saw last week, and yes, I am using that. The periodic notes was the daily note, the weekly note, and all of that. So we looked at that when we looked at the calendar. Projects is what you've just seen. So we've seen that one. Quick Add lets me add things quickly, surprisingly enough. So every week I have to send the church email, the church newsletter, back to the church secretary. And I send a mail with it. So every Thursday night I have to make a page that should live in a certain folder with a certain starting point and a certain name. And I use the Quick Add to automatically do all of that. And it links in with the last one that I've got, which is Templater. Now, we haven't looked at Templater, and I was going to look at the mobile version next week. So let me know if you'd rather see the mobile version or Templater first. But Templater, there is an inbuilt template command. If you remember, under the core plugins, you've got templates. Templater is templates on steroids. So Templater gives you a lot more features. So I do use that a lot. So I have a lot of sessions, mastermind groups that I'm in, Ship 30 and stuff like that. And when I have a session on, I am in my daily note and I use the shortcut to Templater and I type CT for Captain's Table, press enter, and my notes appear. All the headings that I use within my notes appear. All the metadata appears, the whole thing. And all I have to do is fill in the blanks. So Templater is definitely worth a look at. And those are all the ones I use. So Advanced URI, because it's needed. I could uninstall Fleeting Notes, and the rest I do actually use. But as you can see, I don't have that many. Because I don't want to rely on something, basically. If something came out and it was amazing, like projects, then I would use it. But other than that, there are things that I see in... Well, let's have a look at the community plugins. Because we can browse, can't we? So we can just scroll. So, I mean, there's all kinds in here, like marked out notes as a mind map. I wouldn't use that. Day planners and stuff, I wouldn't use that because I've got my own setup. Icons in the folders, no, I just don't particularly need it. Paste the URL into the selection. I have other ways to do that. So there may be things in here I would find useful. I think this Obsidian Pandoc I've heard good things about it, so I may have a look at that. That's not something I could replace in any other way. But a lot of this stuff, spaced repetition, I'm not at school, I don't need it. So I don't install stuff just for the sake of it. Oh, and you'll notice that one says it's installed, but if you remember, he changed the name of it, so I disabled it. So I use that as and when I need it, but I don't leave it turned on. I would use the Zotero integration if I was using Zotero, so it would be on an as-needed basis, basically. But other than that, I'm happy with what I've got. And I don't use anything like Excalidraw, which is a drawing thing, or anything like that. I keep it fairly simple. But having said that, it is by far the best notes app I have ever used. Because, I mean, it doesn't have things like different colours. Mike, you had some notes, didn't you, in Apple Notes? And he said, I think I should move this to Obsidian. And I glanced over his shoulder and I said, and what are you going to do about the green text and the red text? Because it doesn't support colours. And I said, you could underline it, you could make it bold, make it italic, you could highlight it, but you're going to have a different schema because the colour meant something. So there are things that it doesn't do, but, I've been through them all. I've started with paper notebooks and graduated through OneNote the first time around, Evernote, then OneNote, GoodNotes, you name it, I've tried it. As far as I'm concerned, Obsidian is the only one. There is one reason. Obsidian is the only one that gets better the more notes I put in it. All of the others fell over. So let's look at Evernote. Evernote has the ability to export notes. It always has. I used to do it on a regular basis. All 16,000 of them. So I had multiple backups. They bring out a new version, and at the point they release it, it can export, wait for it, 50 notes. There's me backing up for the rest of my life then. They then updated that. They doubled it to 100. Thanks for that. Still going to be there for the rest of my life. OneNote had fantastic tactility. Evernote relied on tags, so you just had to trust the tags. But OneNote had this concept of notebooks, so I don't even have to open a notebook and search through it if it's a notebook about recipes and I'm looking for something totally unrelated. But the more I put in it, the worse the search was, the slower it ran, it wouldn't sync, you name it. But Obsidian, if you start with Obsidian and you put 3 notes into it, and you think, and I don't understand why everybody's going crazy over this. It's not all there. Try putting 300 notes in it, and with your backlinks and your organisation and the plugins that you've got and the way that you can view the data, like these projects, it will help you get your job done. So, and the more I add in, I can be looking at one thing and think, oh, I'll just put double brackets around that. One day I might write something about OneNote, and I put double brackets around it, and it lights up, and I'm like, I've already written something about OneNote. Go and have a look at that. And I go and have a look at it and think, oh, that's interesting. It helps with the links. It helps you discover the information that you already have in there, that you already know, whereas all of the others seem intent on separating me from my information. So the one thing, as far as I'm concerned, is Obsidian gets better the more you put in it. So I can only imagine how excited I'll be this time next year, because I'm already pretty excited now. I think I've got about 3,000 notes in there at the moment, maybe more now. And I've not reached that point where it's like, oh, I can't find X, because I do a search and it's offering me up a load of stuff that is unrelated. OneNote is a mess with that, an absolute mess. And Evernote, it can do a good job of search, but you have to speak its language. There is a whole syntax available for searching Evernote. But again, the problem is it's only really fully implemented in the legacy version, and the legacy version is the only one that will export all 16,000 notes in one go, and the legacy version does not support all of the new features. So as far as I'm concerned, the whole Evernote thing is just a bit of a mess. But with Obsidian, if I'm on my iPad and Obsidian isn't working, I can open up a text file and just edit that. It doesn't matter what app I use. As long as I've got access to the cloud that the thing is on, then I've got access to it. Do we have anything else?
Yeah, Carol says, what's the name of the Raycast extension that makes the advanced URI work, please?
Right, let's go and have a look at that. Right, so you go to Store, don't you, and search for Obsidian. And you've got 2 options. There's the Obsidian bookmarks, and one just called Obsidian. And the one that's just called Obsidian is the one in question. So you can see on there, I've got the green tick next to it. So it's just called Obsidian. So if you are in Raycast, type store, press enter, type Obsidian, press enter, and move down to the one called Obsidian. The bookmarks one enables you to save and search bookmarks in Obsidian. I honestly don't know if bookmarks are a feature in the other one. So let's find out. So in there, if we do Obsidian, we've got a pen to daily note, search. Do we have anything on bookmarks? Doesn't look like we do. So if you wanted to do something with bookmarks, you might need the second extension, but I haven't got that one installed. But when you come to install that extension, it will prompt you to install the other one. And then the two talk to each other through that. What else have we got?
Does it slow down as you add lots of notes?
No, not at all. The notes themselves are tiny little text files with an MD extension, and obviously they're not loaded in, if you're with me. What is happening in the background, which we could actually have a look at. So let's get that down there and get the Finder up. Right, so my stuff is in there amongst all of this detritus, which is Obsidian. So this is the demo vault. This is my vault. And within any of these, so if I go into there, this is what you've seen in the sidebar. If I now turn on hidden files, you will see that there is an Obsidian folder at the top, and it's actually called .obsidian. And everything that you install to make Obsidian work is in that folder. So you can see it says plugins, calendar, cardboard, These are all the plugins that I've got installed. And I've got some JSON files, I've got workspaces that I've saved. All of these is what makes Obsidian work. And they are tiny. You know, that says 8.6 meg. I think that's got the backups in it though, hasn't it? I would guess so. Well, let's have a look what this is. What's all that lot together? 6 meg. 12 on disk, but 6 meg. So this is actually really tiny. If you think about how much detritus there would be, I mean, in your browser with Notion, it takes up acres of space. OneNote takes up even more. So does Evernote. I'm talking like Evernote, about 3 gig, something like that. It's ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. So one thing is the files are very small. You open up any of these and they're going to be fairly small. So let's have a look at this year so far. If we look at January, you know, 2K, 1K, 2K, a few bytes. They're tiny. But these are not loaded into memory. They're indexed, and all of the control files are in this Obsidian folder. So they are indexed, but they're not actually loaded into memory. So, you know, I've added thousands of files. All these date files for a start. Doesn't slow down in the slightest. Not in the slightest. And once it's synchronized to another machine, so it does take a couple of minutes to synchronize to mobile. But once I'd got all my periodic notes in, and I'm editing in a day maybe 10 or 12 notes, synchronizes in seconds. And no, it doesn't slow down at all, no matter how much I add into it. Do bear in mind, I do not have graphics in there at all. There are no graphics in my database, full stop. I came across a problem with that early on. You either have to put the graphics in the same folder as the note, or you put them in a separate attachments folder. And I thought, what if I delete the reference to the attachment? And the attachment does not get deleted. So I thought, life's too short. I'm not managing attachments. So how I get graphics in there, and I have lots of graphics in there, but how I get the graphics in there, I think I demonstrated this. I use an app called Cloud App, but Dropbox will do it for free. I upload my image to the cloud and I put in a remote reference. And that means when I synchronize my system to my mobile device, I do not need any space on my mobile device. So by comparison with something like Evernote, which is using gigs worth on my iPad, it's using 10 meg, something like that. So the synchronization is much, much faster, and I don't need a device with acres of space on it. You know, I put one PDF in it at the beginning, and this PDF was quite large, and it took my database to like 40 meg. Just this one PDF. When I took the PDF out, my database was back to like 6 meg. So I thought, I don't see the point in trying to manage this. Now, other people that I've spoken to about it have said that what they do is they put the attachments in the attachment folder, but then they choose not to synchronize the attachments or the photos to their mobile device. And I'm like, but if you need to see the image, and if you didn't need to see the image, why is it in Obsidian in the first place? If you need to see the image on the mobile device, you can't see it. With my way, you can. It's in the cloud. As long as you've got a connection, it will just load it in live. And it doesn't take any space. So that was why I decided to do that with it. Do we have anything else?
No.
Only seen bits. I'm seeing that scrolling up now, Jamie, so you're in big trouble. Right, let's get back in there then. So what do we have coming up? Don't forget, next week, your clocks are changing in the US. I don't know if they're changing anywhere else, but they're definitely changing in the US. You're losing an hour's sleep. Do you know how I know that you always lose an hour in the spring? I know there's this spring forward thing, but I always remember being in London when I was writing to you before we were going out. I was on a revision course, and my dad was driving back. I was working overnight, so I finally got to bed about 3 o'clock in the morning, which was actually 4 o'clock in the morning because the clocks had gone forward. I does an entire day's work, having done an entire day's work the day before. I was dead on my feet. And he says, can you drive home? I'm not well. Drive home? Dad, it's 220 miles. What do you mean? I'm tired. But I had to drive home, so that's how I know. So it's an hour later, which means you've got an extra hour in bed. Although what you would be doing in bed at 5 o'clock, I don't know. And let's leave that alone and move on. So next week, times will be different if you are elsewhere. But in the UK, same time, same place. We also have things available on demand, which is youtube.com/Elaine Giles. We have a dedicated After Hours playlist, and I will add this one to that playlist as soon as we have finished. You can find that at macbites.co.uk/After Hours playlist. And of course, where's my mouse gone? Of course, we love you guys. If you love us or you've found anything useful, please give the video a like. It really helps with YouTube. And of course, you could subscribe so you don't miss anything that might just appear. Right, there is my list, which some of you may have joined tonight, which had the thing on it. The Affinity Photo thing, that's what I'm thinking about. So that is elainegiles.com/VIP. And all of the After Hours stuff will arrive with you via macbites.co.uk/macbites-mail. And finally, there is Slack. That is where we carry on the conversation. We have 2 links. If you are not already a member, go to macbites.co.uk/join Slack. And there is a sign up. It is totally free. But it's like Twitter, but without the toxicity, is how I always say. A non-toxic Twitter. If you are a member, then you can get there fastest by going to macbites.co.uk/Slack. And there we go. So, what do we have in the way of questions while I contemplate my ice cream? I'm contemplating my ice cream. Do we have any other questions?
No.
Oh, Peter's got a question. Come on. Can't you see Peter's question?
Yes.
Right, away you go.
Do you have any ideas for making dogs happy? Owls are looking sad.
Yes. What you need to do is to persuade Tesco to deliver the bigger Dentastix.
Fill them with treats. It worked for Lola.
I don't think Peter's dogs are sad because of their food. Let's just leave it at that. I'm sure they'll be cheered up immensely soon, Peter. Oh my word. Yes. But I am going to want pictures. I'm going to want, you know, those pictures that people put on Instagram of dogs dancing and stuff. I'm going to need some of those. So you might want to start collecting some. Thrill the little dogs.
Oh, Jamie asked a question earlier. But it wasn't really a question. It was a suggestion for a future episode.
Mm-hmm.
A Zotero demo.
Yes, it's a very good app. And I actually discussed this with you, didn't I?
You did.
And I said that the problem I fear with Zotero is like, oh, it's amazing. Look what it can do. Yes, it is, isn't it? And then the next question is, does it work? Does it integrate with Scrivener? No. No, it doesn't. Does it integrate with Obsidian? No, it doesn't. Does it integrate with Affinity Publisher? No, it doesn't. Can you copy and paste at all? So that's why I've left it alone at the moment. I'm hoping, for better integration, because the integration it's got with Word is fabulous, but, most people want it somewhere else. But I will have a look at that and I will contemplate what it can and can't do. So great suggestion. I saw Carol saying templater, please. Right, I can show you how I use that, so no problem at all. Right, and what's this one that I can't read at the bottom about 6-foot fences?
Carol made the dog happy by putting 6-foot fences around the garden. So
now you see, we did that, didn't we, with Maya? And the fences were still there when Lola arrived, so that was no problem. But then last February, we had the beast from the east, and we're missing 2 fence panels now, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking after last night, the wind was howling. The rain was lashing down and everybody else has got 6 foot of snow. I was annoyed. So I was thinking that 3rd panel's going to go, in which case we can get somebody in to fix it then, because they all need changing. Lola's not a digger. Mayo was a digger. But he didn't like, this was him all over, wasn't it? Little Prince. He didn't like digging. Well, he did like digging in the mud, but he actually had a sand pit, one of those blue things for children. And they're like a shell and they come in half. One you put water in and one you put sand in. So, of course, his had sand in. And then the other half, if you put water in it, they would go nowhere near it. So we used that as a lid on the sand pit. Well, we tried her in the sand pit, didn't we? She wasn't keen.
Not interested.
No. I think Maya learnt about the sand pits from the park around the corner.
Yeah, she's not interested in the bunkers around the corner.
No, I remember taking him for a walk when I really shouldn't have been taking him for a walk. You were away somewhere. I wonder if that was Canada. But I took him round to this park. We have a park nearby called Pinky Park. I've no idea why it's called Pinky Park. But it's actually got a 9-hole golf course on it. Proper thing as well. 4 and all of that. So Mayo was an absolute swine on the lead, wasn't he? He would pull and pull and pull. So I somehow managed to stagger round the corner with him. By the time I got there, I needed a break and he was still pulling and pulling. So the first thing I did was say, right, stop here. We're stopping for a couple of minutes. And I tied him to a tree. I had my doubts whether the tree would survive, but it did. But then he was pulling on the lead to get to what looked like a cliff edge. Wasn't a cliff edge. It was a bunker on the golf course. So I sat on the edge of it and he dived straight in and started digging his way to Australia. He was having a whale of a time, but I thought, you know what, tire him out. Keep going, lad. Oh, that was great fun. Oh, Jammy's got an off topic here. What's the question, Mike?
I had Microsoft Teams installed on my Mac and recently noticed it disappeared. Any reason why this might have happened?
No, I haven't got Teams installed. I don't know about you.
I've got Teams installed, but it didn't disappear. It's still installed.
I wonder if it was an update and the update was a personal update rather than... I don't... Because I tried. It said to me, try Project. No, not Project. Microsoft Planner. So I clicked the button in the email, like you do, like an idiot. And I got to this page and it said log in with your Microsoft account. So I did. And then it said, yeah, you're not having this. It needed to be an enterprise account. Oh. So that's why I've never bothered with Teams. Plus the fact you swear at it on a regular basis. Yeah, Mike doesn't like it. So from that reason, I was like, well, I won't bother then. If Mike doesn't like it, I'm not having it. We had thought about that, hadn't we, instead of Slack? When Slack went weird. Slack did this, they changed it from you can have your notes up to 10,000 or something to you can have them for 3 months. So we contemplated it, but consensus was, I think Paul said as well, didn't he? It's not pretty. So we left it alone. So no, I can't help you there. I have no idea why that happened. It just happened by the look of it. Okay. So, are we done at that point?
I think we are.
Okay, I'm with Carol here. They could jump the fence if they wanted. Maya could have jumped a fence, couldn't he? But it was like they say with an elephant, if you tie it with a chain when it's young, you can take that chain off when it gets to about 2 and it won't move. Maya could have jumped it easily, but he never thought he could, which was good. Because he had enough thoughts, didn't he? Should have been left alone. One was when my dad was seriously ill and Maya was sat next to him, and it was not the best of days. We knew the end was imminent. Maya licked his hand and went into the kitchen. By this stage, it was a complete farce. That it was the meeting of thousands, wasn't it? But long version short, ambulance appeared. They got Dad into the ambulance, and the front door was wide open because honestly, they were moving furniture and all sorts so they could get him out. So the front door was wide open, and Maya was in the kitchen. That's a good 15 yards, isn't it? Meters these days. And his eyes lit up. An open front door was something he had never seen. And at this stage, he was 12 and a half. 12 and a half. Nearly 13, I think. And his eyes lit up and I thought, oh no. And I knew I couldn't get to the door fast enough. And he took a flying leap. He ran. And, he had arthritis at this stage. He ran for this open door. And it was like a triple jump. There was the front door step, there was the porch, and there was the outside door. And he took off and went, and my heart was in my mouth. I thought he was going to kill himself. He took off and he went over all of them and landed sprawled in the garden. Luckily, I got to the gate and closed that first, and he just sat there grinning. Oh, he was a nightmare. And the other thing was, then he wouldn't come in. And as the ambulance turned round, it put the blues and twos on. And I thought, oh no, he's going to start howling. And when he howled, didn't he? Luckily, he didn't. And I thought he must have known that Dad was all but gone. It wasn't worth howling at. But we would know as ambulances went past, because we're on the ambulance route. If he howled at one, they were a goner. But Dad had already gone. He'd said goodbye to him. And the other time was when Dad came back from the hospital, on one of the ludicrous occasions they said he was going to be fine. He was not going to be fine. He came back in and he had a Zimmer frame, and Maya was so pleased to see him that as Dad's trying to manoeuvre this Zimmer frame, he nutmegged him. He went between his legs and then jumped over the Zimmer frame, landed in a heap on the floor, and I had visions of him taking Dad with him. And it was one of the things about being released from hospital, that if you can't walk with a Zimmer frame, they can't let you out. They basically had him superglued to this Zimmer frame, didn't they? Just trying to move him. Maya was a menace, an absolute menace. Tracy's got a cold. Oh no! Oh, he should be looking after you if he's giving you that cold. No, I'm not too bad. Jamie hasn't rushed to reinstall it. Looked at the app, noticed it's gone. Stuff like that happens. I have had weirdness today. I had to reboot not long before we started because it had eaten 400 gig of disk space. Mike's like, have you got something synchronising? Really? Should we mention Sherlock at that point? I have no idea what it was doing. It gave me 200 back and then took another 150 away. So I just keep having to move stuff off the main hard drive. It's just in that kind of mood. What it's saying is Apple are going to bring something out new shortly, and it'll probably have a 2 terabyte hard drive. So you should update. It's a message from Timmy. I'm going to break something. There you go. Colds recover well with chocolate. I never found that, Not when I was eating chocolate. Never found that, but never mind. The storage issue happened on one of the old after hours you were watching yesterday. Do you know, I wouldn't be surprised. It has happened before. And it probably is something to do with Dropbox or Google Drive, because Google Drive hasn't worked well since Apple forced Google to rewrite it. So, like, our black hole is appearing in episodes now, isn't it? So I think we should move it to Dropbox. We might have to look at the black hole again next week if we do move it to Dropbox. I could move it live. There's an idea. Nothing like Jeopardy, is there? Right, okay. Oh, Carol's just updated Obsidian Vault to Dropbox, but the read-while files have failed. It will fail on Dropbox, Carol, if you have any emojis in the file names or the folder names. So I don't know if you have. We tried that with you, didn't we?
We did.
Dropbox synchronises reasonably, but you won't be able to use it on mobile. That's why I decided, you know what, just pay for sync and be done. Not like me, I'll grant you. But we share the cost, Mike and I, so that's why it's worth it. Right. Just get a new Mac. Well, do you know, I wish it were that simple. If it was a simple matter of getting a Mini or a Studio, I'd seriously consider it. But we need a Retina monitor, so that would mean paying through the nose for an Apple monitor. Then, instead of having 3 monitors, you can only have 2, and that won't work for me. I need 3 for what I do. If there was a Mac that was basically the same as mine, with a better hard drive and younger, I'd already have bought it. So Timmy's being very short-sighted with this. But, you know, it's the middle of March, and we've not had a sniff of an Apple event yet. So maybe there'll be one in April, which people are banking on, or we'll have to wait till WWDC. Fingers crossed there'll be something worth buying. Kimmy's always happy to watch me use the black hole. Well, I'm thinking that it's not working right on Google Drive. It was on Google Drive for a reason. And that was because Dropbox, when you put something in a folder in Dropbox, it automatically synchronized to the Mac, and we didn't want that. We just wanted the stuff in Dropbox on demand, and it didn't do that. Now it does, because Apple have changed the rules. But the problem with having it on Google Drive is Google Drive is taking like 20 minutes to say, oh, by the way, there's a new file. So now I'm thinking maybe it will be faster on Dropbox. So we might need to test that. We will see. Well, we can have a fun weekend playing with it, can't we, Mike? Are the team playing? Or, well, when I say playing, you know.
Sunday.
And who are they playing?
Southampton.
Oh, well, I would say they might do well there. Because didn't they just get beat by somebody from the 4th division?
Yeah, Grimsby.
But that usually means they'll perk up against us. Yeah. And we'll think, oh, this is a walk in the park. And before you know it, 7-0. There you go. Right. Tracy's saying more likely at WWDC. I'm wondering, I think it's a little bit late for an event in the spring. And I see we're still hearing about, at great length and detail, the AR glasses, which, you know, couldn't be less interested in. The imminent AR glasses, imminent since 2011. But this is the year, apparently. Does anybody know why we would be buying them? What do they do?
No idea.
I can understand the Microsoft one. What's that? Is that Halo?
Yeah.
The one where you train surgeons and stuff. I could understand that. But, you know, your average person, I'm not at all sure why I would want AR glasses. But, you know, I live to be proved wrong. Fingers crossed that they managed to do that. Right, okay, if we have no more questions, we will head off. Ice Cream is calling. Right, only 2 screens. Yes, Jammy, it was an update that they put on a lot of the devices that you could only plug in one extra monitor. You can get a very expensive hub now that will let you plug in 3. But, you know, that's on top of buying the new kit. It's utterly ridiculous. When I bought a Mac in 2011, you could plug 2 iMacs into each other and one would use both screens, and the other one that's not using its own screen would run headless. They stopped that as well. So basically anything that I like that makes my life easier, Timmy has stopped. This is why Timmy and I need to have a talk, but Timmy's not up for it. Silly boy. Right now, they'll do anything you want because you haven't seen what they tell you they'll do. I'm just thinking, you know, I know it's been talked about a lot, and I'm like, people are so excited. I'm much more excited about AI myself. You can have hours of fun with the AI, but glasses, no, I'm not seeing it. If it's gaming, then I get it, but I'm not a gamer. So from that perspective, I can't understand why so many people are thrilled with the idea of it coming. Unless they're thinking of using it for other things. Like watching a United match, reality is it's 7-0, but put the glasses on and it's 0-7. Yeah, if it could do that, Mike could have a pair. But beyond that, not happening. Okay, so we are going to head off. So for the moment, I'm going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.